Chapter 301, Part 1. Outside the base gate. As the door opened again, the Phantom slowly drove out of the base, carrying Chen Luo and Tony. Oh ho, I'm finally free. Is this the free air? It's so refreshing. Hey, Tony, you made the right choice by choosing me as your partner. Let me tell you the truth, among my partners, I am the strongest except for the boss. We will definitely become good partners in the future. In the carriage, listening to Phantom's constant talking, Tony looked helpless and felt a little regretful in his heart. He probably didn't expect that his future partner would be such a talkative person. No wonder when he left with the Phantom, the others didn't stop him too much, but were rather happy to see it happen. Now that I think about it, this woman, Ling, looks like a trap. He sighed in his heart, but now even if he wanted to regret it, he had no chance. He could only bite the bullet and go home with his new friend. Correct. At this time, Tony seemed to suddenly remember something and turned to look at Chen Luo. Chen, I'm planning to move my headquarters to New York recently, but I haven't decided where to move yet. How about that? Do you want to give me an opinion? You guys are finally willing to move here? Chen Luo smiled and waved his hand. You don't have to worry about the location. Leave it to me. Then you can be my neighbor. 11 Tony nodded. Obviously, he agreed with Chen Luo's proposal. After talking about this matter, Tony took Mirage back to Los Angeles first. Since he was moving the company to New York, there were still many things that he, the president, needed to deal with there. So Tony planned to go back as soon as possible to solve them. After saying goodbye to Tony, Chen Luo used teleportation and returned home within a few minutes. His front foot just came in, and the next moment, the door opened again, and when he heard the movement behind him, Chen Luo turned his head and saw the person coming. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. Peter, why are you back so early? Did the date not go well? Peter walked up to Chen Luo with a gloomy expression and sighed heavily. Don't mention it. It's already pretty good that I came back alive from this trip. With that said, Peter told Chen Luo what happened at Gwen's house. Recalling the unkind face of Gwen's father, Peter couldn't help but shudder secretly, and his heart was full of fear. So, you are equivalent to meeting your parents? Hearing Peter's description, Chen Luo laughed and patted his shoulder, comforting. Isn't this a good thing? Anyway, you have left an impression in front of Gwen's family today, and it seems that, because Xi's impression of you is not bad. With such an impression, if you want to find a reason to ask Gwen out in the future, I think George can rest assured. Hearing this, Peter's eyes lit up. He looked at Chen Luo expectantly and asked, Really? Do I really have a chance to ask Gwen out in the future? Definitely. Chen Luo nodded affirmatively. Anyway, your current progress has surpassed all of Gwen's other suitors, which is already a big advantage. As long as you seize the opportunity, there is a great possibility. Success. After listening to Chen Luo's analysis, Peter, who had been a little worried, suddenly cheered up again, with a firm look on his face, and he clenched his fists hard, and his heart was filled with motivation again. I understand. I will try my best. Come on, boy. I'm optimistic about you. After cheering Peter up and seeing him regaining confidence and full of motivation, Chen Luo smiled and shook his head, said nothing more, turned and walked towards the bedroom. For the next 2 weeks, Chen Luo spent almost most of his time in the headquarters. Not only the laboratory establishment at Banner, but also Tony's company relocation was handled by Chen Luo personally and was left to Craven to handle. His main energy is used to persuade Hulk to continue reading and studying. Fortunately, Hulk is still willing to listen to what Chen Luo, a good friend, has to say, so as long as Chen Luo is around, Hulk can barely hold back his temper and read. Seeing Hulk's performance, Peter, who is responsible for teaching, is heartbroken. A huge sigh of relief. Definitely, Hulk will soon fall into a manic state if he just reads, so at this time, another role of Chen Luo will also be reflected. Be a target. After all, Chen Luo has never forgotten the reason why he asked Hulk to read a book. Isn't it just to better absorb energy from Hulk and improve his own physical fitness? Now, as Hulk's study ends every night, he has accumulated a lot of anger in his heart. If he cannot vent it out, the increasingly manic Hulk may really go around destroying. Therefore, regardless of whether it was for the safety of himself or the headquarters, Chen Luo stood up without hesitation and took Hulk to the desert thousands of miles away every night to start fighting to his heart's content. Definitely, during the battle, Chen Luo used energy conversion more for defense. With each punch of Hulk, Chen Luo could clearly feel that huge amounts of kinetic energy poured in from the outside world instantly, and then it is absorbed by the body under his control, thereby improving his own physique. Every minute and every second, Chen Luo could clearly feel the improvement in his physical fitness. His whole body was warm, as if he was soaked in a hot spring, feeling the various changes in his body. Chen Luo was pleasantly surprised, and also it is even more powerful. Under Chen Luo's energy conversion ability, even though each of Hulk's punches had tens of tons of terrifying power, it still could not cause any harm to Chen Luo. No matter how crazy Hulk launched an attack, Chen Luo did not fall at all. Sign. Under Hulk's constant attacks, nearly 10 hours passed, until the sky began to lighten slightly, and as the anger in Hulk's heart dissipated, the battle finally came to a halt. So under these 2 weeks of crazy fighting, as a large amount of energy was absorbed by the body, coupled with the hateful blood 4.4 fluid absorbed previously, Chen Luo's various attributes have finally been greatly improved. Host: Chen Luo race, source blood clan strength, 213, 1 for a healthy adult male, speed, 100, 499.9 physique, 266 skills, fighting technique, high, knife skills master, Proxima midnight magic, high ability, super speed regeneration, blood control, steel body, assimilation, blood source, memory reading, bat transformation, dark favor, teleportation, energy conversion evaluate. The physical attribute increased by 116 points, the strength attribute increased by 33 points, and the speed attribute increased by 30 points. Looking at his gains in the past 2 weeks, Chen Luo couldn't help but nodded with satisfaction, and couldn't help but feel a little joy in his heart. Chapter 302, Part 1. Being able to achieve such a big improvement in just 2 weeks, there is no doubt that Hulk takes the majority of the credit. It is precisely because of this dedicated sparring partner that Chen Luo can absorb enough energy to improve himself. Definitely, the hateful blood provided him with a lot of energy. According to his calculations, the opponent's blood provided him with about 40 attribute points. Considering his current attributes, this is a big improvement. Definitely, it is not that Chen Luo has never thought about using the blood of abomination to obtain a brand new ability, but at the moment, Chen Luo's physique cannot carry more abilities. Secondly, with abomination, Chen Luo also I can't find the ability I want. After all, the power of abomination was obtained through Hulk. If he had any ability, it was related to transformation. But when he thought about what abomination would look like after its transformation, Chen Luo gave up his thoughts instantly. He already has a transformation ability. Even if he gets another one, he won't be able to use it much in the future. With the ability of energy conversion, which can be called a panacea, there is no doubt that in terms of power, this ability has become his biggest trump card. With such a trump card in hand, 23's ability like abomination can no longer attract him. Attention, unless it is Hulk's level of ability, it will be enough to seduce him. After experiencing the rocket-like growth rate in the past 2 weeks, Chen Luo has become more and more eager to separate Banner and Hulk. Now that Iron Man has been born, the time for the arrival of a certain purple sweet potato spirit is gradually approaching. If nothing happens, Thanos will come to Earth in about 5 years at most. You must know that even Thanos, who has not gathered 6 infinite gems, still has the peak strength of the demigod level. Compared with the current Chen Luo, it is a big level behind. Judging from his current progress rate, if he wants to catching up with the other party after 5 years is also extremely difficult. What's more, he is still far away from breaking through to the demigod level. If he wants to break through the limitations of spiritual attributes, he needs to collect millions of souls. Such a number, he doesn't even know how to finish it. Thinking of this, Chen Luo's joy quickly faded, and he had another headache. Just when Chen Luo was a little worried about this matter. Thousands of miles away somewhere in Texas. It was raining heavily, dark clouds obscured the moon in the sky, and the night was dark. On an endless wilderness road, a blue truck with flame patterns intertwined all over its body was speeding through the rainy night, and bursts of wailing could be heard in the large carriage. Come on, rush over. Landing on the front wheels. No, damn it, lost again. Looking at the picture on the screen in front of him, Mike slapped his thigh and put down the game controller in his hand, his face full of annoyance. Hey, Mike, you better stop playing. This game is not for you. Next to Mike, a tall and muscular man wearing a peaked cap on his head, who looked a little bit beaten down, put down the book in his hand, turned to look at Mike and said, "Johnny." Mike looked over with an unhappy expression. "You have to know. Not everyone can be like you and survive every time in the hands of the death god." As he spoke, Mike kept moving his hands, holding the remote control and pressing it, changing the TV channels in front of him. As if to verify his words, the next moment, Mike suddenly stopped moving, his eyes condensed, and he looked at the screen in front of him. There have been various accidents in the extreme sports arena, but ask these drivers who they admire the most? Without a doubt, the answer is Johnny Explosion, who has never competed before. The most powerful stunt driver ever. But how long can he fool the death god? Some comments said that watching Johnny's stunt scene was like paying to watch a suicide show. Boom, Johnny goes over the limit regardless of his life. Although people call him the invincible car king, he has to be invincible next time. Because next time, Boom Johnny will definitely try to fly over both sides of the football field. Listening to the voice on the screen, a gloom flashed in Mike's eyes. He stood up and turned off the TV. Then he turned to look at Johnny, who was also the real owner on the TV, without saying a word. The atmosphere suddenly became dull. "What's wrong, Mike?" Johnny asked, pretending not to know. "What's wrong?" Mike stared at the other person without blinking, his face full of worry. You almost lost your hair today. Count me lucky. Johnny shrugged, his face relaxed. No, I have a hunting dog, and its name is Lucky, but it has become a one-eyed dragon now. Mike's eyes were serious. Listen, Johnny, luck can't save your life. The reason why you can survive until now is definitely there is an angel behind you to protect you. But you have to know that angel will not always favor one person. If you don't cherish your life like this anymore, you will pay the price in the future. Maybe. Johnny remained unmoved and answered calmly. Hearing Johnny's answer, even though he had heard this answer hundreds of times, Mike still couldn't help but shake his head and sighed in disappointment. Mike, do you want to play cards together? At this time, behind the two people, the other three members of the explosive train team suddenly spoke, breaking the silence. Definitely. Count me in. Seeing that he failed to persuade the other party, Mike said no more, looked at the other party deeply, and then turned and left. Looking at Mike's leaving figure, Johnny's eyes flashed slightly, and he slowly turned his head and looked out the window. Under the dark night, Johnny's face was clearly visible on the car window. 330 Angel? Johnny's imperceptible voice sounded. Maybe it's another power. As soon as he finished speaking, a bolt of lightning flashed across the dark night sky, instantly lighting up the night sky. And at the moment the lightning appeared, on the car window in front of Johnny, on Johnny's face, a pale white skull mask loomed, looking extremely ferocious and terrifying. As the vehicle passed by, what Johnny and others didn't notice was that in the distant wilderness, accompanied by dense lightning, a sudden rain of fire began to fall from the sky. Countless sparks fell to the ground, incinerating the weeds around the wilderness. Turned into ashes, the land instantly became barren. Immediately afterwards, in this barren land, a looming figure gradually became clearer, as if it had crossed another space, and finally appeared. The figure gradually approached forward, raised his head, looked at the sky above his head, took a deep breath, closed his eyes tightly, and felt it carefully for a moment. Finally it worked. The low and suppressed laughter sounded in the wilderness. Looking at the scene around him, Wu Xinma had an extremely excited smile on his face. The dark eyes without white eyes were filled with the dim light of Liao Run. He opened his arms and laughed as if no one was watching. Stand up. I'm so sorry, father. The earth you value is mine from now on. Chapter 303, Part 1. In the vast wilderness, a tavern that was made entirely of wood and looked a little dilapidated stood alone. Dim lights dimly lit up from inside the tavern, and at the same time there were bursts of noise. There were a number of motorcycles parked outside the dilapidated tavern, and most of the owners of these motorcycles were resting inside the tavern at the moment. It was not easy to find such a tavern in this uninhabited wilderness. They were already exhausted, and they definitely didn't let it go. They decided to stay here for one night to regain their strength before continuing on their way. Outside the door of the tavern, a tall, sinister-looking man wearing a black leather jacket exclusive to the Bosuzoku clan was leaning on the long wooden pillar beside him, holding a bottle of beer in his hand and looking casually ahead. However, at this moment, the big man suddenly felt a chill coming from his hand. When he looked down, he found that the beer in his hand had been covered with a layer of frost. Just when he was a little confused, the next moment, a man in black clothes walked quickly towards the direction of the pub. Seeing that the other party was trying to enter the tavern, the big man frowned and quickly stretched out his hand to stop the other party. Hey, this place is full. You're in the wrong place. Seeing that the person didn't pay any attention to his intentions and still walked forward, a trace of anger appeared in the big man's eyes and his voice became lowered. Are you deaf or something? Only angels are allowed in here. Angel? The visitor paused, then slowly raised his head, revealing his pale and handsome face. Wu Xinmo had a half smile on his face and slowly said, Are you serious? That's right. The big man sneered, stretched out his hand and poked Wu Xinma's chest hard. Why? Do you have any dissatisfaction? Lowering his head and looking at the opponent's hand that was in contact with his body, Wu Xinma's eyes turned cold, and the corners of his mouth drew a cold arc. In fact, he suddenly stretched out his right hand and quickly touched the opponent's chest with his index finger. The end of his index finger had the power to corrode all things, and it instantly pierced Dawn's chest before he even used any force. The vitality in his body passed quickly. In just a few seconds, the big man's skin quickly aged and sagged. His originally strong body shrank sharply, and finally turned into a terrifying-looking mummy. He collapsed to the ground with no strength and was lost. No sound. I'm really dissatisfied. After easily disposing of the opponent, looking at the brightly lit scene in the tavern, Wu Xinma's eyes flashed coldly, and he raised his feet and slowly walked towards the tavern. At this moment, the night suddenly became darker. After a while, the lights in the tavern stopped, and the room became dark and silent. At the same time, whether it was the Bosuzoku group, the tavern owner, or the waiters, They were all the same as outside the house. Their vitality disappeared, and their bodies turned into mummies, stood stiffly in place. In the center of the tavern, the witch heart demon stood quietly, without saying a word, as if waiting for something. A moment later, in front of him, a large amount of soil slowly rose up from the ground, and finally formed a human form and appeared on the spot. Earth demon. Immediately afterwards, there was a sound of running water, and a stream of water suddenly appeared. Its shape continued to change, and finally turned into a man with water dripping from his body and an unusually pale face. Water demon. An invisible breeze flowed into the house silently, and also took the form of a human, appearing behind the inner demon. Wind demon. Why did you summon us? Water demon asked first. I'm here to find the pact of Saint Fong'ansa. As soon as these words came out, the expressions of the three of them changed. Legend has it that after the contract was stolen, it was hidden in a cemetery not far from here. Looking at the three of them, Wu Xinma said in a deep voice, Now, you have to help me find it. What will you do after you find it? Feng Yimou grinned, revealing the shark-like sharp teeth and his cold eyes. With it, we can dominate the entire world. Control everything. A hint of excitement appeared on Wu Xianmo's face, and he clenched his fists. Witch heart demon. The next moment, a low and hoarse voice filled with suppressed anger, like a devil's whisper, suddenly sounded outside the house. Hearing this voice, Wu Xinma's expression changed. A coldness flashed in his eyes. He turned around, pushed open the door, and strode out. When he came outside the tavern, looking at the old man in front of him who was wearing a black suit, a top hat, and holding a cane, Wu Xinma grinned slightly and couldn't help but laugh. Father, I didn't expect to see you here. In front of the witch heart demon, Mephisto's face was gloomy. He suppressed the anger in his heart and spoke seemingly calmly. What are you doing here? Witch heart demon. Witch heart demon, it's my time. Old man. Your time will come, but not now. A cold light flashed in Mephisto's eyes, and a terrifying aura surged outward, staring at the opponent. Don't do this, old man. Faced with the opponent's momentum, Wu Xinma's face flashed with fear at first, but soon he seemed to have thought of something, and quickly regained his composure, saying calmly, We all know that you can't hurt me, old man. This is not hell. Wu Xinma sneered, I'm different from you. I will never fail. Never. Hearing this, Mephisto paused for a moment, and then said, In this world, my power may not be as strong as in hell, but to deal with you, my knight is enough. As soon as these words came out, Wu Xinma's face changed, his smile disappeared, his brows furrowed, and his face looked a little ugly. Ghost Rider, your favorite title? Staring at the other party, Wu Xianmo was filled with rage. He gritted his teeth and said word by word, The power of hellfire is wasted on a miserable human being. Father, if you trust me, if you give me what is mine, they all belong to me. Mephisto interrupted with a calm look on his face. Until the day it all ends. After a moment of silence, Wu Xinma's face regained its composure. Qian Zhao, please do as you please. Send your knights here. I will bury him with my own hands. Then, it's your turn next. Father. Mephisto didn't say anything more. His body slowly dissipated into the air and disappeared. The next night, after the day's performance, Johnny returned home, looked at himself in the mirror, and recalled everything that happened today, with a rare smile on his face. Roxanne. He also didn't expect that before today's performance started, he would be able to see his first love more than 10 years ago. Although there was some unpleasantness between the two at the time, after his unremitting efforts today, the other party finally forgave him. I fell in love with him and am willing to have a long-awaited date with him tomorrow. Thinking of this, Sleepy began to look forward to it for the first time. Johnny. At this moment, a faint voice rang out from behind Johnny. Chapter 304, Part 1. Turning his head subconsciously, Johnny's expression changed when he saw the person coming, and he couldn't help but say, It's you? Looking at the other party's old face, his memory seemed to be instantly brought back to more than 10 years ago. His face was extremely ugly, and he gritted his teeth and said word by word, Mephisto. Long time no see, Johnny. Behind him, Mephisto, who appeared at some unknown time, slowly took off the hat on his head with an inexplicable smile on his face. Leave me alone. Oh, it's a little late to say that. Mephisto smiled, as if remembering something, and suddenly said, Oh, by the way, I saw your car just now. It looks really good. What are you doing here? I'm always here, Johnny. Mephisto stepped forward slowly and said in a low and hoarse voice, Always there. Phoenix, Denver, Houston. I have to say, your performances are really amazing. Hearing this, Johnny's expression changed, and a glimmer of light appeared in his heart. It's you who enable me to escape death. No, Johnny. Mephisto shook his head. looking at Johnny as if he were looking at a treasure. You are the best. I am your most passionate 660 fan. The posters, the video games, the audience shouting excitedly. It sounds like I'm proud. Walking around Johnny, Mephisto's voice was like a demon whispering, as if it could pull people's souls into the depths of hell. It's like watching an investment constantly increasing in value, until one day, you cash out the investment. That day is today, Johnny. Finally, Mephisto slowly stopped and turned to look at the ladder. Find the witch's heart demon and destroy him. This is your mission. Go find it yourself. Completely ignoring the other party's order, Johnny sidestepped the other party and walked towards the door. I think you may have misunderstood something. Mephisto smiled and had no intention of stopping him. You signed the contract, do you remember? The moment the words fell, Johnny's body froze in place, motionless, as if bound by some inexplicable force. Feeling that his body could not move, Johnny's eyes flashed with horror, and he tried hard to get away. However, no matter how hard he tried, it was all to no avail in the end. CDCG. If you can succeed, a hand gently placed on Johnny's shoulder, and Mephisto's voice sounded, I will return your soul to you. Really? But what if I don't want to do that? You have no choice. Immediately afterwards, Mephisto gently raised the crutch in his hand and slammed it down. Boom. With a crisp sound, the next moment, Mephisto disappeared from the spot. The moment the opponent disappeared, Johnny regained his mobility again. However, before he could breathe a sigh of relief, an unprecedented burning sensation emerged from his body. He raised his hands and saw that his hands began to turn red and hot at a speed visible to the naked eye. A trace of panic appeared on Johnny's face. He quickly came to the sink, turned on the faucet, and kept rinsing his hands. However, no matter how long he rinsed, his hands showed no signs of recovery. On the contrary, as the burning sensation in his body continued to increase, white steam visible to the naked eye emerged from Johnny's body. Ah! Painful roars resounded in the room. Looking at the steam rising from his body, Johnny opened his eyes wide with a ferocious expression on his face. He waved his hands desperately, trying to shake off the steam from his body. However, his actions had no effect at all. As the temperature in his body soared rapidly, unprecedented pain spread throughout his body. His flesh and blood were constantly being eroded by the high temperature. The raging flames broke through the shackles of flesh and blood, and the body wrapped underneath the flesh and blood a layer of white bones is burning. The painful screams gradually subsided, and when all his flesh and blood were melted away by the flames, a skeleton wearing a black jacket and full of blazing flames appeared in its place. Stepping lightly, the hellfire exuded intense heat. Following the skeleton's footsteps, a dark scorch mark instantly appeared on the ground. Quickly arriving at the gate, the raging flames turned into a heat wave and swept forward. The gate made of steel was eroded by hellfire. In just a few seconds, a big hole was burned out of the gate. The steel turned into red liquid and dripped on the ground. The skeleton strode out of the hole and came to the front. On the street, putting his right hand into his mouth, a loud whistle sounded. After a while, boom! The roar of a powerful engine sounded, and then, a Harley-Davidson motorcycle with blue and flame patterns all over its body rushed out from a short distance and came to the skeleton. Looking at the motorcycle in front of him, the skeleton stretched out his hand and gently brushed the car body. The fire of hell flowed along his hands to the body of the motorcycle, wrapping it around the entire motorcycle. Click! There was a dense sound of metal friction. Under the transformation of hellfire, the motorcycle began to undergo drastic changes. Various parts of the car body began to shape-shift. In front of the car, a ferocious skull mask covered it. The car body was shrouded in a layer of silver-white steel. The skull in front had blazing flames in its eyes. It looked like a war machine returning from hell. Like a car, it is ferocious and full of a different kind of momentum. He sat astride the chariot and turned the handle of the chariot. As he moved, the sound of a powerful engine started, and raging hellfire spurted out to the rear. Under the strong propulsion, the chariot instantly rushed forward. Boom! A long flame remained on the ground in the direction of the chariot's advance. This chariot, fueled by hellfire, exploded at a speed far beyond ordinary people's imagination under the control of its knight. The chariot streaked through the air with a blurred afterimage. As the knight passed by, the surrounding vehicles and house windows instantly exploded. It seemed as if they had experienced a huge amount of impact, and the environment became a mess. The newborn knight drove his chariot, following the order from the Lord of Hell, Mephisto, and galloped towards the location of his inner demon. The next night, after Chen Luo waited for Peter to come home, he was about to take Peter to the building headquarters as usual, when the next moment, the phone rang. Picking up the phone and looking at it, a trace of doubt flashed in Chen Luo's eyes. Phil Coulson, what do you want from me? Following the voice on the other end of the phone and hearing the news from Phil Coulson, Chen Luo was heartbroken and instantly became interested. Fire Skull? Texas? Okay, I got it. His brain was running rapidly, and the next moment, Chen Luo seemed to have thought of something, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Could it be him? Chapter 305, Part 1. According to the news from Phil Coulson, in the direction of Texas, a skeleton wrapped in flames suddenly appeared last night, driving a flaming chariot through the city. Wherever the chariot passed, the ground was in a mess, causing huge losses to the city. Moreover, according to the intelligence from the police station at that time, the chariot could move freely on the surface of high-rise buildings. Whether it was water or high-rise buildings perpendicular to the ground, it could walk on flat ground and walk freely through them. Wherever the chariot passed, it left a long trail of flames, which did not dissipate for a long time. Even though the police deployed a large number of manpower last night, they still could not successfully retain the other party. They had no choice but to contact SHIELD and let them handle it. After receiving the news, Fury immediately sent Phil Coulson to deal with it. After some investigation, Phil Coulson finally made a discovery after Johnny discovered the license plate accidentally left on Johnny's motorcycle after passing through the battle site with the demon after his transformation. They followed the license plate and searched all the way. After finding Johnny's house, they finally determined their target through the big hole left in the other party's door. However, in the face of their inquiries, Johnny himself denied it. Because of Johnny's original status as a big star, Phil Coulson and the others couldn't do anything, so they had no choice but to give up. Until tonight, when Phil Coulson and his party were confirming yesterday's intelligence with the police here at the police station. Suddenly, with a loud noise, 10 cells behind them exploded instantly. Then, under the gaze of Phil Coulson and other people, a skeleton covered in flames and wearing a black leather jacket walked out of it, came to the door, got on the chariot wrapped in flames, and drove away. It wasn't until here that Phil Coulson finally confirmed the authenticity of the information told by the police officers. Seeing the other party walking away quickly, Phil Coulson did not dare to neglect and quickly led people to chase him. On the way to catch up, just in case, Phil Coulson immediately thought of Chen Luo as a strong support. He knew that Chen Luo had the ability to teleport and could quickly go to support, so he immediately got in touch with Chen Luo. Tell him everything about the situation here. Sure enough, after hearing the news from Phil Coulson, Chen Luo immediately became interested and began to think quickly. If his prediction was correct, the person who appeared in Texas might very well be the famous Ghost Rider. Rumor has it that Ghost Rider signed a contract with the Lord of Hell, Mephisto, and the latter injected the soul of the vengeful angel into the contractor's body, thus resurrecting Ghost Rider. Provide convenience. Just like today's explosive Johnny, many years ago he signed a contract with Mephisto to save his father, thus becoming the Ghost Rider with extraordinary power. But it is a pity that Mephisto broke his agreement and failed to rescue Johnny's father in the end. After witnessing his father's death, Johnny began his wandering career. Until today, Mephisto appeared again. The spirit of revenge in his body successfully awakened, and a night was born. If it was really that night, then Chen Luo really wanted to see what the other person was thinking. If he remembers correctly, Johnny should also be on the side of justice. In addition, the power possessed by Ghost Rider is definitely at an extraordinary level. With such combat power, if possible, Chen Luo would also like to win him over. Enter your own camp. At this point, Chen Luo immediately made a decision. Nodding slowly, Chen Luo was about to speak, but the next moment, a familiar system prompt sounded. Ding! It has been detected that the host is about to come into contact with the devil. The following options are now open. Choice 1. Help Ghost Rider and kill the inner demon. Reward, directional space jump, 1 time. Choice 2. Help the Witch Heart Demon and kill the Ghost Rider. Reward, Hellfire ability. Hearing the news from the system, Chen Luo was shocked and fell into deep thought. There is no doubt that just looking at the rewards, the second option is undoubtedly more attractive. Chen Luo also has a desire for the flames from hell. The reason why Ghost Rider is feared by countless people mainly comes from his 2 abilities. One is the fire of hell. This flame is not only extremely hot and extremely destructive, but it also has a unique transformation property, just like Johnny's demonized tank. After being modified by hellfire, the original power of the chariot is several times, or even 10 times more powerful than before. This is undoubtedly an extremely huge amount of increase. This ability, which is both powerful and practical, is also the reason why Chen Luo favors this kind of flame. As for the other one, Ghost Rider is also known as a killer weapon. Eyes of Repentance. Looking directly into the knight's eyes, the memories of the first half of his life will instantly drown him. If there are sinful parts in the memories, the flames from hell will rise from the depths of the other person's soul and instantly burn the other person's soul into a ball of ashes. If you don't have strong enough means, or you have never committed any sin in your life, or your soul is strong enough to withstand the erosion of hell fire, otherwise it will be difficult for anyone to resist this direct attack on the soul. Chen Luo wanted to get either of these two abilities. Looking at the rewards displayed on the panel, Chen Luo couldn't help but feel a flash of excitement in his heart. However, soon, he seemed to have thought of something and shook his head helplessly. Gave up the idea. First of all, Chen Luo would not be willing to attack such a person without sufficient reasons for the existence of a righteous camp like Johnny. Secondly, it was too difficult to kill Ghost Rider. Even he was not sure he could do it. If he remembered correctly, Ghost Rider seemed to be a regenerative healing factor. Facing physical attacks, the opponent would not truly fall into death. If you want to truly kill the opponent, you can only find a way at the soul level. But an existence like the spirit of vengeance is also difficult to destroy. After all, it is the soul transformed by the legendary angel after falling into hell. Especially the strongest among the spirits of vengeance, it is even more powerful than Mephisto. It's as if the vengeful spirit staying in Johnny's body right now happens to be just such an existence. When it comes to the essence of the soul, the other party is on the same level as the Lord of Hell. If it weren't for losing his mind, the other party would be a powerful man of the legendary god level. With Chen Luo's current power, if he wants to destroy him, it is obviously still think too much. After realizing that he could not complete the second option, Chen Luo was not in hesitation and decisively chose the first option. After making his choice, Chen Luo immediately agreed to Phil Coulson and agreed to leave. After hanging up the phone, Chen Luo immediately changed direction, swayed, activated his teleportation ability, and then disappeared instantly. A few minutes later, when Chen Luo appeared again, he was already in the city where Phil Coulson was. However, when he just stood firm, the next moment, boom, an unprecedented violent roar suddenly sounded from behind him. Chapter 306, Part 1. Subconsciously, Chen Luo turned around and looked at the scene behind him. Chen Luo's pupils began to shrink instantly. A raging heat wave swept forward in an instant. Amidst the blazing hellfire, a ferocious and domineering chariot with a skull mask inlaid on the front of the car was speeding towards Chen Luo. And on this chariot, there was a man wearing a black leather jacket, with a steel chain tied to his body, and his body was covered in flames. The skull was looking at Chen Luo, and a low and hoarse roar sounded. Sins shall be judged. Worry. Upon hearing this, Chen Luo still didn't understand the other party's intention. Obviously, this guy smelled the sinful smell on his body, and this smell was absolutely extremely strong. So strong that it even exceeded the height of the demons of the Witch Heart Demon. It was precisely because of this that this guy smelled the smell. 450 was heading in the direction where he was. As for why the other party came to find him, Chen Luo also had some guesses. Having said that, I don't know if it's because the spirit of vengeance in the other party's body has gone completely crazy, so their standards for judging crime are slightly different from normal, especially when it comes to killing. In the other party's judgment, no matter what the purpose of your killing is, killing originally is considered a kind of sin. And just as it happens, in terms of the number of killings, who here can compare to Chen Luo, who massacred hundreds of thousands? Even though Chen Luo's desire to kill has been reduced a lot since his rebirth, with the massacres he caused before, in Ghost Rider's eyes, Chen Luo's existence is like a huge light bulb in the darkness, extremely bright. Eyes, always attracting his attention. Therefore, the first time Chen Luo came here, the opponent who perceived Chen Luo's evil also instantly changed direction, temporarily gave up chasing the other demons, and fixed his eyes firmly on Chen Luo. After thinking about this, Chen Luo suddenly became a little depressed. The powerful roar of the engine sounded, and before he could reach him, the opponent pulled off the chain on his body, and the fire of hell wrapped around it. The chain suddenly turned into a red python and whipped towards him. Seeing the other party's actions, Chen Luo couldn't help but feel a trace of anger in his heart. A cold look flashed in his eyes. Without any intention of avoiding him, he stretched out his right hand and shook it gently. Snapped. Under the influence of huge amounts of force, as the chain swung, the air around them seemed to be exploded, making a crisp sound. However, when such a powerful blow finally landed in front of Chen Luo instantly grasped it in his hand. Huge amounts of power are like stones sinking into the ocean, quietly returning to peace. The terrifying power containing nearly 10 tons of power was all turned into kinetic energy and absorbed by Chen Luo. Even the hellfire wrapped around the chain was turned into other forms of energy the moment it came into contact with Chen Luo's body, and was thus absorbed by Chen Luo. Absorbed into the body. As the constant flames were absorbed, Chen Luo's eyes suddenly lit up as he felt the energy in his body that was rising at an extremely fast rate. After personally experiencing the power of hellfire, Chen Luo was pleasantly surprised to find that the energy transformed by this flame was unexpectedly huge. Even a wisp of flame could provide him with as much power as Hulk. The energy provided by sparring for a minute or so. He just absorbed a few breaths, and the energy he absorbed was equivalent to the total of Hulk's sparring for nearly a day. As all the flames attached to the chain were absorbed by Chen Luo, even the flames on Ghost Rider's body seemed to have become a bit dimmer at this moment, and his aura seemed to have been reduced, and it was no longer as attractive as before. The chariot stopped instantly. The knight slowly left the vehicle, looked at the chain in his hand, roared, and the flames began to surge again. The raging hellfire burned blazingly and once again covered the surface of the chain. The fire spread rapidly, gradually following the chain and approaching Chen Luo. Seeing this, Chen Luo had no intention of letting go. He still held the chain in front of him tightly with one hand. No matter how hard the other party tried, he could not break free from his restraints. The fire of hell exudes a terrifying high temperature of thousands of degrees. However, even this temperature is enough to melt steel, but it cannot cause any harm to Chen Luo. Seeing the flames in front of him quickly spreading towards him, Chen Luo's face was calm and his thoughts moved. Then, the ability is activated instantly. Under the influence of the ability of energy conversion, the hellfire covering his body is rapidly being absorbed by his body and converted into energy that warms and nourishes the body. Countless cells in the body are like greedy gluttons, frantically absorbing this energy. Following his movements, Ghost Rider was obviously stunned as he looked at the flames on Chen Luo's body that were decreasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. However, he was only stunned for a moment, and then unprecedented anger emerged in his heart. You are guilty. Sinners must be judged. The flames on the body's surface rose again, accompanied by an angry roar. Without saying a word, Ghost Rider constantly spread the hellfire along the chain. Looking at the posture, it seemed that he was going to use the flames from hell to burn Chen Luo. Like ashes. Seeing the opponent's movements, Chen Luo's eyes flashed with light, and with a thought, the speed of absorbing the flames was instantly reduced by about half. As more and more flames accumulated and spread on his body, Chen Luo frowned, and a hint of pain appeared on his face. Seeing this, the opponent instantly became more powerful and continued to create more hellfire, rushing towards Chen Luo crazily. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 10 minutes. As time gradually passed, unknowingly, most of Ghost Rider's power had been consumed in the non-stop creation of flames. The flames that originally rose on his body had become a little dim, losing enough support from the 5.9 fire of hell. Even the chariot beside him silently returned to its original form, no longer as ferocious and domineering as before. At the same time, looking at Chen Luo, who had turned into a human-shaped torch in front of him and kept screaming in pain, Ghost Rider's mouth, which was only a skeleton, opened and closed silently. Although he didn't say a word, he could clearly feel it. See how confused the other party is at this moment. Looks like it's almost done. Seeing that the hellfire provided by the other party was getting weaker and weaker, Chen Luo finally spoke. Knowing that the other party had no energy for him to absorb, Chen Luo no longer pretended, and with a thought, his abilities were fully activated. The next moment, the flames that originally covered his body were slowly swallowed up by his body and gradually dissipated in the air. Feeling the energy he had absorbed tonight, Chen Luo curled up his lips and showed a satisfied smile. Chapter 307, Part 1. In just 10 minutes, Chen Luo has absorbed more energy than the total amount of energy he absorbed from Hulk before. After strengthening the energy, Chen Luo's various attributes have once again improved. A huge improvement. Host: Chen Luo race, Source Blood Clan strength, 245, 1 for a healthy adult male, speed, 110, 499.9 physique, 305 skills, fighting technique, high, knife skills master, Proxima Midnight Magic, high ability, super speed regeneration, blood control, steel body, assimilation, blood source, memory reading, bat transformation, dark favor, teleportation, energy conversion evaluation. The road to becoming a god has begun. Congratulations, you have taken a firm step on the road to becoming a god. The physical attributes have increased by nearly 40 points, and strength and speed have also increased to varying degrees. Compared with the previous increase, although the numerical value has decreased, what you need to know is that as the numerical value of these attributes increases, the difficulty of each subsequent increase is also increasing, and the energy to be absorbed to improve these attributes is also increasing. It will get bigger and bigger. Therefore, this result is completely within Chen Luo's expectation. Just when Chen Luo was very satisfied with this unexpected gain, in front of him, Ghost Rider looked completely different. During the stalemate just now, due to the continuous creation of hellfire for a long time, his physical strength has been exhausted at this moment, just like a battery that has exhausted its power and can no longer burst out any energy. The hellfire that originally covered his body and kept burning has become much dimmer, like a candle in the wind, uncertain in light and dark, and may be extinguished at any time. In this state, the opponent's strength also seemed to be reduced a lot. He loosened his hands holding the chain, swayed slightly, and looked straight in the direction of Chen Luo, his eyes full of doubts. Even though the other person has no eye sockets, Chen Luo somehow can still clearly feel what the other person is thinking at the moment, but he didn't mean to explain to him. Originally, He didn't plan to fight with the other party, but since the other party came to him, he didn't mind giving him a lesson. With a flick of his hand, the chain in his hand swung forward and instantly wrapped around Ghost Rider's body, binding him firmly in place, unable to move at all. Because his strength has not yet been restored, Ghost Rider at this moment has completely lost the momentum he had at the beginning. Even if he tried hard to break free, with his current strength, it was completely useless. I don't know when the opponent's power will be restored. Although Chen Luo is not afraid of the opponent's Hellfire ability, there are some unsolvable tricks like the Eye of Confession. He is still a little scared. So after seeing the opponent unable to move at all, Chen Luo's heart moved and he disappeared into the air in an instant. The next moment, behind Ghost Rider, Chen Luo suddenly appeared, grabbed the opponent in midair, tightened his arm muscles, and then use all your strength and throw it towards the sky. A powerful sound broke through the air. Under Chen Luo's full throw, the opponent was like a meteor burning with flames, drawing a gorgeous trajectory in the air, and then disappeared before everyone's eyes. It's really spectacular. Looking up at his masterpiece, Chen Luo nodded with satisfaction and smiled. After solving this problem, Chen Luo was about to turn around and leave to find Phil Coulson. At the next moment, the familiar phone rang again. After connecting the phone, Phil Coulson's anxious voice came. Chen, where are you now? Are you here already? Great. Chen, I need your help with something here. It turns out that just now, Phil Coulson was leading people to look for traces of Ghost Rider. News came from Rurin from the police station. Just a few minutes ago, on a busy commercial street in the city, there were suddenly a large number of casualties, and the death of those humans was also very strange. Most of the flesh and blood on their bodies had melted away, and they looked like mummies. Looking at the dozens of mummies on the ground, the police detective who went to investigate was a little confused. The next moment, a strong wind blew, and with the strong wind blowing, many people were instantly blown into the air by the strong wind, and they were unprepared. In this case, he fell from a height of tens of meters and fell to the ground and died on the spot. Seeing this scene, the remaining people were immediately horrified and realized that this kind of thing was completely out of the scope of what they could solve. Thinking of Phil Coulson and his team who specialized in solving this kind of thing, they hurriedly sent a request for help message to the other party. After receiving the news, Phil Coulson immediately rushed in the direction of the other party. In the process of heading to the destination, because he was worried that he would not be able to solve this kind of incident with his own strength, it was natural that Phil Coulson also thought of Chen Luo, who was rushing here at the moment, and quickly called to prepare for help. Listening to Phil Coulson's narration on the other end of the phone, Chen Luo's eyes moved slightly and he raised his eyebrows, without any hesitation, and immediately nodded in agreement. Okay, I understand. Wait for me there. I'll be there right away. The first time he heard the other party's narration, Chen Luo already knew in his heart that except for the few demons Ghost Rider was chasing, there was probably no one else who could do such a thing. Thinking of his mission goal this time, Chen Luo had no reason not to go. So after confirming the location, Chen Luo made a thought and immediately used his teleportation ability to start on his way. It only took a few seconds. Before 993 Phil Coulson could reach its destination, Chen Luo arrived first. A black shadow flashed in the air, and the next moment, Chen Luo appeared quietly in a corner of the street. Although his movements were fast enough, humans still had no room for resistance in the face of creatures like demons. When he came here, the scene had become a mess, except for the people who kept screaming and running away in the distance. There was no one alive on the street in front of him. In the middle of the street, hundreds of human corpses were silently scattered everywhere. Chen Luo glanced around and looked at the corpses in different forms of death on the ground. His eyes flickered. Then, his eyes slowly moved to the center of the crowd and looked towards the only figure standing in front of me. He looks a bit thin. His skin is very pale. His teeth are as sharp as a shark, especially his goat-like pupils with a short horizontal line. Just looking at it makes people shudder. What is even more eye-catching is that around the opponent's body, there is a breeze lingering around him. His feet are slightly off the ground and floating in the air. Looking from a distance, it gives people a sense of Z. Looking at the other party's appearance and combining it with his past memories, Chen Luo quickly locked onto the other party's identity. If he remembered correctly, this should be one of the partners of the Witch Heart Demon, the Wind Demon. Chapter 308, Part 1. To be honest, Chen Luo didn't know very well about Feng Mo's strength. When watching the plot, the opponent was easily solved by Ghost Rider. Since facing Ghost Rider was the fate of this game, Chen Luo thought that it shouldn't be difficult for him to deal with the opponent. And now, apart from Feng Mo, the Witch Heart Demon he most wanted to meet has disappeared. In this case, if he wants to find him, he can only find him through this guy in front of him. As soon as he thought this, Chen Luo stopped hesitating, moved his feet, and his body rushed out, turning into a sharp arrow, approaching quickly towards the front. In less than a second, Chen Luo came to the opponent's side instantly, reached forward with one hand, and grabbed the opponent's neck. However, what Chen Luo didn't expect was that in the face of his determined blow, Just when he was about to successfully contact the opponent, the next moment, Feng Mo's body swayed and instantly turned into a breeze and dissipated in the air. The 5 fingers subconsciously clenched into fists. Under Chen Luo's terrifying power, the air was squeezed out of the palm, making a sharp explosion. At the same time, Chen Luo's figure slowly emerged. Looking at his empty right hand, Chen Luo frowned slightly, turned his head and looked forward. A trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. At this moment, in front of him, a small whirlwind was circling in place. Through his far superior vision, Chen Luo could faintly see that in this whirlwind, a familiar face appeared faintly. Is this elementalization? Seeing the opponent's current state, Chen Luo suddenly felt troubled. He knew this ability very well. In the opponent's state, he was completely immune to physical attacks, so if he wanted to deal with the opponent, he would obviously have to use only by other means. Who are you? While Chen Luo was thinking in his mind, Feng Mo's voice sounded on the other side. The body turned into a whirlwind and flew on the spot. In the whirlwind, Feng Mo's face faintly appeared. Looking in the direction of Chen Luo, the other party seemed to have discovered something, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. I smell countless sins on you. How about it? Do you want to join us? If you are willing to serve Master Wu Xinmo, as long as you let him transform you into a demon, with your sins, Ji Gao can become the most powerful demon under my command. Sin? Chen Luo frowned. What does this mean? Perhaps it was because Chen Luo's sins were so profound that Feng Mo looked at Chen Luo in a different light, and already recognized him as one of his future companions, so he explained without hesitation. After hearing the other party's explanation, Chen Luo finally understood what the sin in the other party's mouth was about. For hell, the most important factor in judging whether a person's sin is serious is how much life is on his hands. And no matter whether the people who die on your hands are good or evil, it is based on this judgment standard. So there is no doubt that Chen Luo, who has hundreds of thousands of lives on his hands, is definitely guilty in the eyes of those hell demons. Once such people die, their souls he will also be accepted by hell, and there is a high possibility that he will metamorphosis into a powerful demon in hell. Definitely, if a demon with the strength of Mephisto or the Witch Heart demon could personally transform Chen Luo, then he would not even need to go through the steps of death, and he would be able to become a real demon in one step. Therefore, Feng Mo's attitude towards demon potential seeds like Chen Luo has never been better. Not only did he introduce Chen Luo to the various benefits of becoming a demon, he also constantly wanted to draw Chen Luo into the Wu Xinmo camp. Human, as long as you are willing to join Lord Wu Xinmo, then when he realizes his purpose of coming to Earth this time, after returning to hell, you will gain unprecedented power and status in hell. If Lord appreciates you enough, you might even be given a planet as a reward. Eternal life, powerful power, and the power to control countless lives and deaths. As long as you are willing to join us, you will have the opportunity to have these. So what else can you hesitate about, human being? Listening to these seemingly tempting conditions, Chen Luo looked straight at the other person, silent for a moment, then a smile appeared on his face, and he spoke slowly. Are you telling me this to ask me to deal with that flaming skull? Chen Luo shook his head and couldn't help but chuckle. What a good plan. If I hadn't understood the nature of demons like you, maybe I might have been tempted. When Chen Luo heard these temptations from the other party, he was already very suspicious. If he remembered correctly, creatures like demons are essentially cruel and cunning. Since there are so many benefits to joining their camp, would these demons be willing to share these benefits with others based on their nature? Thinking of this, and then thinking that these demons are now being chased by Ghost Rider, Chen Luo immediately understood the other party's plan after thinking about it for a moment. If his guess was correct, the reason why the other party wanted to pull him into the camp was probably to use him as a shield against the pursuit of Ghost Rider. As long as he could hold the other party back and let them take the opportunity to find the target of their trip, then whether he is dead or alive, it doesn't matter anymore. Hearing Chen Luo's words, Feng Mo's smile froze, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and he sneered, "Human, it seems you are not very stupid. What a pity. If you are willing to cooperate well, I might be able to spare your life. But since you are unwilling to accept it, I can only send you to hell in advance. But don't worry, even if you are dead, I will not give you the chance to become a devil. I, Qian Zhao, will accept your soul." He laughed ferociously, and as soon as he finished speaking, the next moment, the whirlwind transformed by the wind demon suddenly swept towards Chen Luo. A terrifying whistling sound sounded, a strong wind blew, and countless air currents continued to rush towards the center of the street. The fierce wind blew, and Chen Luo's sleeves were blown loudly. At the same time, in just a blink of an eye, the whirlwind transformed by the wind demon instantly enveloped Chen Luo, as if countless sharp knives were cutting Chen Luo thousands of times in 10 seconds. Chen Luo was in the center of the storm, his body motionless. He stood there with a calm face and no intention of moving, letting the opponent's attack come. If an ordinary person faced such an attack, It would take less than a second for his body to be cut open by the countless wind blades, his flesh and blood melting in the storm, and finally he would become a white skeleton. But this is not the case for Chen Luo. Chapter 309, Part 1. Facing the opponent's attack, Chen Luo thought, and the next moment, the constantly rotating storm from the outside world turned into energy and poured into his body as soon as it touched his body. With Chen Luo's energy conversion ability, even higher-level flames such as hellfire can be decomposed and absorbed, not to mention the attack of the wind demon. Wind energy is also a type of energy, and it is naturally within his absorption range. So there is no doubt that no matter how violent the endless storm in front of him is, in Chen Luo's eyes, it is just his food. At this moment, Chen Luo's body seemed to have turned into a bottomless abyss, unscrupulously swallowing and absorbing the strong wind that was constantly coming from the outside world. The moment it came into contact with his body, all the wind energy contained in it was absorbed and transformed. Use it to improve your physical fitness. After losing the blessing of wind energy, the strong wind was like a tamed beast, instantly calming down and dissipating silently in the air, no longer able to have any impact on Chen Luo. How can it be? In the whirlwind, Feng Mo's shocked voice sounded as he looked at Chen Luo, who was unharmed. Who are you? Chen Luo didn't say anything more. He looked at the whirlwind in front of him and frowned slightly, as if he was thinking about something. After a while, Chen Luo slowly raised his right hand, and the energy in his body began to gather and transform. Then, the raging flames were released from his hands, forming a huge flame storm nearly 10 meters high, tightly wrapping the whirlwind in front of him. Inside. The reason why he chose to use flames to fight was because Chen Luo suddenly remembered that in the original plot, the evil spirit men successfully killed the opponent with this move. So now he wanted to try to see if this method would work. However, what disappointed him was that in the face of his attack, the opponent seemed not to be affected at all. The strong wind blew by, and a whirlwind rose from the sea of fire, floating dozens of meters in the air before slowly stopping. Useless? Looking at the whirlwind above his head, Chen Luo frowned slightly and suddenly felt a little troubled. Obviously, since the flames have no effect on the opponent, the reason why Ghost Rider was able to kill the opponent in the first place is probably because the hellfire it possesses has the property of burning the soul. Only after causing damage to the soul of the wind demon can the Ghost Rider be truly killed. It's kill. In other words, if there is no means of attacking the soul, then other attacks will not cause any harm to these elemental demons who have mastered elementalization. Judging from the methods Chen Luo currently has at his disposal, it is said that it can affect the soul. It seems that there is only one hypnotic ability spell that can barely be regarded as belonging to this category, but he has secretly used this ability on the target just now. Unfortunately, the other party did not react at all to his hypnotic ability technique. As for the reason, Chen Luo believes that it is probably because the other party's spiritual attributes are not weaker than his. After all, the other party is also an ancient demon that has lived in this world for hundreds of thousands of years. Compared with ordinary people, the soul is definitely there is a general qualitative gap, so it is not surprising that his mental attributes are equal to his. Therefore, in the face of such an existence, the method of hypnotic ability can no longer affect it. If you want to really cause harm to it, you can only use methods like hellfire that can directly cause damage to the soul. But it is a pity that Chen Luo does not have this method now. Just when Chen Luo was secretly regretting, the voice of Feng Mo came from above his head. Human, don't waste your efforts. How can your attack hurt Feng? Although I don't know what method you used just now, I would like to see how long you can persist. Human, your soul, I will decide it today. As soon as he finished speaking, the next moment, a strong wind blew up, endless air currents emerged in the sky, and dark clouds rolled in the sky. Driven by the strong wind, they began to change into various shapes, which looked inexplicably weird. Countless airflows converged together, and finally under the control of the wind demon, a huge tornado, wind gradually formed. On the outside of this huge amount of tornado, the face of the wind demon was looming. Just looking from a distance can give people a sense of huge amounts of oppression. Aiming in the direction of Chen Luo below, the tornado roared down and enveloped Chen Luo in an instant. The violent airflow turned into countless small wind blades, blowing across Chen Luo's body, as if he was going to be cut into pieces. At the same time, on the outside of this huge amount of tornado, an unprecedented strong suction force came. Bodies, vehicles, street lights scattered on the ground all around, were all drawn into it under the pull of the storm. At the moment of entering the storm, being torn apart by countless air currents, whether they were corpses or vehicles made of various metals, they were all disintegrated in a short period of time, and were originally integrated with the storm to form a line of metal. Death Storm. Driven by countless air currents, countless metal pieces in the storm turned into sharp blades and slashed towards Chen Luo. However, in the face of Feng Mo's all-out blow, Chen Luo still didn't move at all, standing there motionless, still being attacked. At the moment when he first came into contact with Chen Luo, the wind energy, kinetic energy from the outside world, all kinds of energy began to pour into his body crazily. After being transformed layer by layer, they were finally swallowed up by the cells in his body. With the supply of this energy, Chen Luo's physical fitness began to slowly increase again. But perhaps because these energies are not as high in nature as the hellfire just now, so until the end, when he absorbs all the energy contained in this tornado, the improvement it brings to him is only the former. About 1/10 of that. Seeing that his attribute points had only increased by single digits, Chen Luo sighed with some disappointment, looked forward, and couldn't help but say, "Why? Is this all you have? If that's all you have, then you devil, are really weak and pathetic." "What did you say?" Hearing Chen Luo's words, Feng Yimou suddenly woke up from the shock. A cold, murderous intent subconsciously appeared in his pupils. He gritted his teeth and roared in a low voice, "Damn it, humans, if our strength hadn't been limited on Earth, do you really think your strength could compete with mine?" "Huh?" Chen Luo sneered and said calmly, "Why? Don't you think you are a demigod in hell? But it doesn't matter even if you are a demigod, I haven't killed you before." As soon as these words came out, Feng Mo's eyes trembled, his pupil shrank subconsciously, and he looked in the direction of Chen Luo, as if he was thinking about something. "It's you?" Feng Yimou seemed to finally remember it. A look of horror appeared on his face. Chapter 310, Part 1. 8 years ago, after the news of Apocalypse's elimination spread, the fall of this powerful demigod who had existed for thousands of years caused a violent shock even in hell. Although the news from the outside world at that time was that Apocalypse had fallen into the hands of the X-Men, how could they not investigate with their forces in hell? Among the group of people who went to confront Apocalypse, there were still the existence of Chen Luo, the leader of Blood Clan. After the fall of Apocalypse, after investigating that Chen Luo did not return with the X-Men, such a piece of news spread around hell. In the battle with Apocalypse, Apocalypse probably fell into the hands of Chen Luo. The two died together in the battle that year, which led to the fact that Chen Luo failed to show up again in the following years. Although there has been news recently that Chen Luo has reappeared, unfortunately, not many people are willing to believe this news. After all, Apocalypse is a true demigod-level powerhouse. If they want to deal with such a being, dying together with him is the best outcome. As for them wanting to escape unscathed, that is something they would never dare to imagine. However, even so, Chen Luo, who was able to die together with Apocalypse, also gained huge amounts of fame throughout hell. For this reason, Chen Luo was given 10 brand new names in hell. The Godslayer. Huh. A trace of doubt appeared on Chen Luo's face. What do you mean? However, the other party was no longer in the mood to answer his question. After learning Chen Luo's true identity, Feng Yimou suddenly realized that he had hit a brick wall this time. After all, what he has to face now is a strong man who can even compete head-on with a demigod-level strong man. That is a level that he could not reach in his heyday. In front of such a strong man, even if he has the ability to elementalize, I can't guarantee that I will be safe and sound. So he said nothing, and before Chen Luo could react, it turned into a strong wind, instantly rose into the sky and dissipated in the night sky. Chen Luo. Although he was a little confused as to why the other party suddenly started running away, Chen Luo had no way to deal with him now. Even if he chased him, it would be of no use. So he had no intention of chasing him and stayed where he was and began to think silently. Now it is obvious that if you want to kill these demons, you really need the participation of Ghost Rider. Otherwise, even if he has the strength to defeat the opponent, it is a pity that without the means to attack the soul, he's still unable to cause fatal damage to those demons. Recalling the choices that appeared in the system before, Chen Luo finally figured out why the system asked him to help Ghost Rider instead of asking him to do it alone. It seems we have to find that guy back. Chen Luo made a decision quickly. However, although we need to find the other party to cooperate, the most urgent task now is to find the other party's residence. Regarding this, it would obviously take a lot of time for him to look for it alone, so the quickest way is to ask Phil Coulson directly, which is more efficient. Thinking of this, Chen Luo was not in a hurry to leave, came to a corner, and began to wait quietly for the arrival of Phil Coulson. He didn't have to wait long. For about 10 minutes, there was a clear sound of footsteps. The next moment, Phil Coulson came to the scene with a group of agents. WB at plus. As soon as they arrived, after they saw clearly the messy, hell-like scene at the scene, everyone suddenly stopped in step, and a trace of horror flashed subconsciously in their eyes. This is Phil Coulson. Just when everyone was at a loss, the next moment, a black shadow flashed across the air and then appeared in front of everyone. Mr. Chen Luo? Phil Coulson's eyes lit up when he saw the person coming, and he said subconsciously. Looking around, Phil Coulson quickly thought of something. Mr. Chen Luo, here just now? Knowing what the other party wanted to ask, Chen Luo did not hide it and nodded lightly. Yes, I have met the other party just now. After a pause, Chen Luo looked at the people behind Phil Coulson and said softly, As for the target this time, you'd better not pursue it any further. The other party is not something you can handle. Upon hearing this, Phil Coulson's face instantly became serious. He nodded without thinking. I understand. But Mr. Chen Luo, can you tell us who the opponent is this time? How difficult is the opponent? Regarding this point, Chen Luo did not want to hide it from the other party. Anyway, in a short time, crises on the Earth will continue to emerge one after another, and this one is no exception. I think you should be familiar with the goal this time. Chen Luo looked serious and explained. The existence that I fought with just now is a demon from hell. Although I should be above him in terms of strength, because the other party can transform his body into the form of wind, I can't keep him. Please give me flowers. Devil? Phil Coulson's pupils shrank instantly, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. Does this kind of creature really exist in this world? Definitely. Chen Luo had an incomprehensible look on his face, and the corner of his mouth raised a slight arc. Not only demons, but you may also be able to see legendary gods in the future. Calculating the time, it is not far from the time when the famous Thor comes to the Earth, and what a coincidence is that Phil Coulson happens to be on that mission. Now let him know about the existence of demons first, and he must be more accepting of it after he hears about Thor's existence. Then, seeing that Phil Coulson was almost calm, Chen Luo continued, so to get rid of that demon, now I need someone's help, point zero, but I still need some relevant information about where the other party lives now. Hearing this, Phil Coulson instantly understood the implication of Chen Luo's words, without any hesitation, and immediately nodded, Mr. Chen Luo, I don't know who you are looking for. Johnny Blaze. Help me find his address. A glint flashed in Chen Luo's eyes, and he spoke word by word. After hearing Chen Luo's request, Phil Coulson immediately started investigating. It only took less than 10 minutes for the other party's address to reach Chen Luo's ears. In order to avoid unnecessary casualties, Chen Luo asked Phil Coulson and his party to go back to the police station to wait while he used teleportation to start on his way and successfully arrived at the destination in less than half a minute. Arriving at Johnny's house, because of the battle just now, the other party didn't know where he ended up. But thinking about the regenerative healing factor that the other party possesses, it is not difficult to recover. When daytime comes and returns to normal form, I think the other party will come back too. So Chen Luo made no other moves and stayed in the room, quietly waiting for the other party to return. While Chen Luo was waiting, on the other side, in a somewhat desolate cemetery on the outskirts of the city, there was a dilapidated-looking church. Inside the church, Johnny was looking at Johnny, who was lying on the bed with his eyes closed, having returned to his human form. Next to him, a tall old man with white hair and beard was looking at him quietly. He was silent for a moment, and then gently sighed. It's been so long. Has a new night been born? Chapter 311, Part 1. The next morning, Johnny finally woke up from his sleep and struggled to get up. However, just as he was about to make a move, his face suddenly changed and he couldn't help but let out a painful groan. At this moment, all the bones in his body seemed to have been broken, and there was a dull pain. Coupled with the burning sensation on his skin from time to time, he couldn't help but wear a mask of pain. Water. Where is the water? Now he seemed to be in a state of extreme dehydration. His throat was so dry that he was about to smoke. He coughed subconsciously, got up with difficulty, and started looking for water. Fortunately, on the table beside him at this moment, intentionally or unintentionally, there happened to be a large pot full of water. Looking at the water source on the table, Johnny's eyes lit up, and he immediately took it without thinking about it. Pick up the water glass on the table and drink it in one gulp. When the full pot of water gradually bottomed out, Johnny finally regained his composure, and his energy level improved a bit. After he regained consciousness, he had the energy to fight the Emperor around. You're awake. At this time, an old voice came from outside the door. Who are you? Where am I now? Seeing a tall old man walking in outside the door, Johnny subconsciously showed a trace of doubt on his face. What? Can't you remember? When he came to Johnny, the old man smiled. Or, do you think what happened last night was just a dream? Last night? Johnny frowned. The next moment, he seemed to suddenly remember something. He covered his aching forehead and forced a smile. That can't be true, right? Looking directly at the other person, Johnny said with a stiff face. If you are saying that you will turn into a flaming skull, I think it is not a dream. So, what happened last night was all true? Johnny's pupils suddenly shrank, and his face instantly became ugly. How did I become like that? Your transformation last night is called Ghost Rider. It was born after signing a contract with the Lord of Hell, Stowe. The old man explained slowly. In summary, Ghost Rider was entrusted by Mephisto to arrest the demons who came here on his behalf and send them back to hell. Oh, does it sound like Ghost Rider is on the side of justice? Johnny couldn't help but laugh. To a certain extent, it is true. The old man continued, during the day, you are normal, but once night falls, the the spirit of vengeance will resurrect from your body and the Ghost Rider will appear. I seem to have remembered it. Johnny murmured as memories flashed through his mind. I met a gangster last night, and I could see in his eyes all the bad things he had done in his life. That's called the Eye of Repentance, the old man said without looking back. It's the ultimate power possessed by all Ghost Riders. It can burn out all evil souls. In addition to the Eye of Repentance, Ghost Rider's other great power is the flame you control, the fire of hell. That is a power that only Mephisto can control. Only when you sign a contract with the other party can the team master this flame. That is to say, except for Mephisto and his Ghost Rider, no one else, including his descendants, is qualified to use this power. Hearing this, Johnny seemed to recall something, and said with a strange expression, "So, this hellfire is very powerful?" "Definitely. Even against some powerful demons, the fire of hell is enough to cause harm to them. Since this kind of flame is so powerful, how come I couldn't even defeat a human last night?" Johnny looked at the other person with doubt on his face. "I saw it with my own eyes, but this hellfire couldn't affect the other person. A little bit helps." "What did you say?" A trace of surprise flashed in the old man's eyes. "Hellfire can actually be ineffective on humans. How is this possible?" After bidding farewell to the old man, Johnny returned to the city alone. After learning all kinds of information about Ghost Rider from the other party, he couldn't wait to go back and test his own power. In the old man's words, because he had just awakened before, his body was still dominated by the spirit of revenge in his body. In this state, he was undoubtedly chaotic and out of control. If he was trained, he could even control it by himself. The power after transformation. Once he could master the transformation freely, he wouldn't have to worry about losing control. Thinking of this, Johnny became more and more anxious. Returning to the place where he fought with Chen Luo last night, after some inquiries, he learned that his motorcycle was now recovered by the police station. Johnny also came to the door in person, planning to take his car back. Because of Chen Luo's previous instructions, Phil Coulson at the police station did not embarrass Johnny too much when he learned of Johnny's arrival, and asked him to simply sign some formalities and let him go. He rode his car all the way back to his residence. As soon as he opened the door, the next moment, Chen Luo's figure appeared in front of him. "I've finally waited for you." Looking at the other party, Chen Luo said with a smile, "Johnny Blazer, you are." Seeing Chen Luo's face that impressed him so deeply, Johnny's expression changed, and he immediately recalled it. Why? You don't recognize me anymore?" Chen Luo narrowed his eyes slightly. "The guy who fought with me last night should be you, right?" After hearing this, Johnny immediately understood that the other party had recognized him, and his face instantly became wary. He took a step back slightly and said defensively, "Who are you? Why do you appear here?" "Don't be nervous. I don't mean any harm." Chen Luo shrugged and looked at the other person calmly. "And speaking of it, you took the initiative to attack me last night, right? Now I just want to come and ask for some compensation. This shouldn't be too much, right?" "Compensation?" Johnny's mouth twitched slightly. "Are you serious? My friend, it seems I didn't hurt you last night. But it's true that you took action against me, isn't it?" Chen Luo waved his hand and interrupted 4.2. "If it were anyone else, they might not be able to survive the kind of flames you have. Since you chose to attack me for no reason, I can't just let it go, right?" "Wait a minute." Johnny's face remained alert. "I won't attack others casually. Only those with the most evil in them will attract knights to show up. And the sin in you is much higher than anyone I've ever seen." Although he didn't say the rest clearly, his meaning was already very obvious. Obviously, in the other party's heart, for a sinful person like Chen Luo, only hell is his final destination. As for compensation, he has never considered this. "Sin? Are you sure?" Chen Luo slowly showed an interested smile on his face and asked, "Then can you tell me, what is your definition of sin?" Chapter 312, Part 1. "So you don't think whoever kills more lives with his hands deserves to go to hell, right?" Johnny said nothing, looked at Chen Luo, and continued to wait for the next step. "It seems you do think so." Chen Luo shook his head helplessly, without saying anything, turned and walked towards the living room behind him. Seeing Chen Luo's actions, Johnny thought for a moment, but finally did not leave and followed Chen Luo to the living room. Sitting casually on the sofa nearby, Chen Luo spoke again. "I have to say that your transformation perception is indeed very sharp. To tell you the truth, many lives have indeed fallen in my hands. But I want to be clear, this does not mean that I am the evil party. On the contrary, my actions have saved many people's lives. So if you ask me, killing does not mean sin." "So, you're still a superhero?" Johnny chuckled. "Just like that Iron Man? Your mission is to save the world. If you're talking about that guy Tony, I don't think I have any reason to refute." Chen Luo 27 shrugged and said with a smile, "That's exactly the reason why I'm looking for you this time. As compensation for your unprovoked attack on me, I would like to invite you to join our camp and become a member of the Avengers." What do you think? Are you interested? Avengers? Johnny's face froze, and he couldn't help but ask, what is that? You can understand it as a superhero organization. Chen Luo explained patiently, there are not many members in the alliance yet. Except for Tony and me, I don't think you know the others. But if you agree to join, there is a chance to meet. Tony? Johnny was shocked. Tony Stark? That Iron Man? Is he also in this organization? Definitely. Chen Luo nodded, then took out his mobile phone from his pocket and waved it in front of the other party. How about it? If you don't believe it, you can call and verify it. Johnny looked at Chen Luo blankly for a while. After a while, Johnny slowly shook his head. No, I don't think you have any need to lie to me. But I'm sorry, I think I still can't promise you. I have no idea of joining any superhero organization. Are you sure? Chen Luo looked at him with interest. What, are you sure you can deal with those demons with your own strength? As soon as Chen Luo said these words, Johnny's pupil shrank subconsciously, as if he understood something, and a hint of surprise gradually appeared on his face. Did you see them last night? Chen Luo nodded and looked at him seriously. I fought against one of the demons yesterday. To be honest, if I look at it, the other demon is much more difficult to deal with than you. You mean, even you can't deal with those demons? Johnny looked at Chen Luo in disbelief. Last night, in the process of hunting down the inner demon, the Ghost Rider he transformed also had an encounter with the Earth Demon among them. To be honest, although his body was not controlled by him at that time, the memory of that time was clearly imprinted in his mind. Facing the opponent Old Demon, he successfully defeated the opponent in just a few minutes. Under his hellfire, Johnny is confident. No matter whether the opponent is the Earth Demon or the Witch-Hearted Demon, he is confident that he can defeat the opponent. But his confidence suddenly disappeared after hearing the news from Chen Luo. After last night's battle, he knew Chen Luo's strength best. He couldn't even compete with his hellfire. If that demon couldn't even defeat Chen Luo's strength, then what would happen if it were him? And this is just one of the demons. The last Witch-Heart Demon is a stronger being. Facing this kind of opponent, is there really any hope of defeating him with his own strength? Thinking of this, Johnny's heart sank instantly. Seeing Johnny's reaction, Chen Luo smiled and continued, I don't think it's better than this. This time, I will help you deal with these demons. When these demons are all dealt with, you can decide later. By then, I think you should have thought about it clearly. After hearing Chen Luo's suggestion, Johnny pondered for a moment and nodded lightly. It sounds like I have no reason to refuse. Hearing the other party's answer, Chen Luo was about to say something, but the next moment, he seemed to suddenly feel something and quickly changed his words. It seems that you have other guests coming, so I won't disturb your world together. I'll come find you again in the evening, and then we'll act together. After leaving these words, Chen Luo suddenly disappeared in front of the other party with a thought. Well, this is. Seeing Chen Luo disappear suddenly, Johnny was stunned. Before he could react, the door behind him opened again. Subconsciously, Johnny turned around and took a look. When he saw the person clearly, Johnny immediately understood the reason why Chen Luo disappeared just now. Roxanne. Inside the police station. After leaving Johnny's house, Chen Luo strode here. Everyone subconsciously ignored his presence along the way, but he still walked in slowly until he came to Phil Coulson and others. After releasing hypnotic ability, Phil Coulson discovered the existence of Chen Luo. Mr. Chen Luo. Seeing Chen Luo arriving, Phil Coulson immediately reacted and asked quickly, the other party is now. Knowing what he wanted to ask, Chen Luo waved his hand casually with a relaxed look on his face. Don't worry, he is not a threat. We have just reached an agreement. Tonight we will act together to solve the demons in this city. After a pause, Chen Luo looked at the other party and continued. When we find the other party's traces tonight, if a battle breaks out in the city, Phil Coulson, you will immediately organize the evacuation of personnel to avoid greater casualties. I understand. Phil Coulson nodded heavily and agreed. Soon, the time came tonight. Seeing the sun setting and feeling that it was almost time, Chen Luo immediately set off for the country. However, as soon as he arrived and saw Chen Luo appearing, Johnny hurriedly walked forward and urged, You're finally here. Come on, we must act quickly now. Luo Shan was captured by that bastard Wu Xinmo, and I must rescue her. When he said this, Johnny looked at Chen Luo closely and said word by word, As long as you help me rescue Luo Shan, I promise to join you. Chen Luo had absolutely no reason to refuse and agreed immediately. Seeing Chen Luo nodding, Johnny was slightly relieved. So where should we find each other next? Chen Luo looked at each other and asked, I can't help with this, I can only rely on you. Don't worry. Johnny shook his head with a solemn expression. Before leaving, the witch inner demon already told me his current location. But before we go to find him, we still need to go somewhere. Chapter 313, Part 1. Under the cover of night, Johnny took Chen Luo with him and walked towards a cemetery on the outskirts of the city. Arriving at the depths of the cemetery and looking at the small church in front of him, Chen Luo's eyes flashed with light, and he had some guesses in his heart, and he asked casually, "What is this place?" "The burial place where the villagers of Santa Fonganza died," Johnny replied. "I met a mysterious guy here this morning. He told me that the covenant of Saint Fonganza is hidden in this cemetery, so I plan to find it. Are you worried that your little girlfriend will be harmed?" Chen Luo nodded. "It's a safe approach." Then Chen Luo didn't say anything more and followed the other person into the church. After arriving inside the house and seeing the scene clearly, Johnny's expression suddenly changed, and he hurriedly stepped forward. "What's wrong with you? What happened here?" Seeing the old man in front of him with wounds all over his body, Johnny was shocked and angry and asked, "Nothing." "Ahem." Seeing Johnny's arrival, the old man stood up with difficulty and glanced behind Johnny. The moment he saw Chen Luo, the old man's face suddenly changed and he looked confused. "Are you the Lord of the Blood Clan?" "Huh." Upon hearing this title, Chen Luo narrowed his eyes slightly, with an uncertain smile on his face. "Do you know me?" Hearing Chen Luo's answer, the old man instantly confirmed his guess. A flash of horror flashed subconsciously in his eyes, and he murmured, "How is that possible? Didn't you die with Apocalypse 8 years ago?" "Interesting." Chen Luo raised his eyebrows and looked at him with interest. "You actually know this news. It seems that you are not as simple as you seem, old man." "Lord of the Blood Clan? Apocalypse?" Listening to the conversation between the two, Johnny looked confused and looked at the old man with confusion, completely confused about the situation. Seeing Johnny's reaction, the old man's eyes flashed, as if he remembered something, and suddenly asked, "Johnny, the person you told me about today, is he Daywalker?" He also suddenly remembered just now that Johnny told him this morning that when he transformed into Ghost Rider last night, he encountered a completely unmatched human strongman. Originally, he was a little curious. What kind of existence can not even be defeated by Ghost Rider? It was only now that he saw Chen Luo that he finally understood. If it's the legendary god killer, it's not surprising that Ghost Rider is defeated. After all, this is a being that can kill even a demigod-level expert. It couldn't be easier to deal with a Ghost Rider who has just awakened for a short time. Facing the old man's question, Johnny nodded. "Yes, that's him. We have just reached a cooperation. Later, he will help me go with Luo Shan and deal with the inner demon. But before that, I need to find the Saint Fonganza contract. With it, I can come to an end with the other party." After hearing Johnny's answer, the old man glanced at the two people for a moment, was silent for a while, and then nodded slightly. "I see. To be honest, if you go to settle accounts with the Witch Heart Demon alone, I don't think you can win. But if you work with the legendary God Killer, you might still have a chance." "The God Killer?" Johnny turned to Chen Luo behind him and asked curiously, "Are you talking about him?" "Definitely." After a moment of surprise, the old man's face finally returned to calmness and he nodded gently. "This is the hero who fought with Apocalypse 8 years ago. Without him, today's world would have fallen into ruins. Is the official under control? Apocalypse? Are you talking about that mutant?" Johnny's expression changed, and he subconsciously looked at the real owner. He was silent for a while, then slowly shook his head. "Okay, now I believe what you said before. It seems that you really are a superhero?" "Forget it, I don't want to be a hero." Chen Luo shook his head, looking a little helpless. "To be honest, if that guy from Apocalypse hadn't gone too far and disturbed my life, I really wouldn't be interested in paying attention to it. As for saving the world, that's just incidental." After saying this, Chen Luo looked at the old man in front of him again, squinted, and asked with interest, "But having said that, the name God Killer, I also heard from the person who fought against me last night. I've heard it from that devil's mouth. So, old man, can you tell me where you heard this title? Or, is there some kind of connection between you and that demon?" The old man took a deep look at Chen Luo, and then sighed softly. "Now that things have happened, I have nothing to hide. You are right, to some extent, there is indeed some connection between me and the devil." With that said, the old man turned to look at Johnny, who looked surprised, smiled at him and said, "Johnny, do you remember what I told you before? The one who stole the contract of Saint Fonganza to escape from the control of the devil? Ghost Rider? Carter Shirey?" He was definitely impressed by this Johnny, so he answered subconsciously. Then he seemed to think of something soon after. His face changed again, and he looked at the other person. "Are you?" Nodding calmly, a smile slowly appeared on Carter's vicissitudes of life. "Yes, as you can see, I am still alive. For more than 150 years, in order to prevent the contract from falling into the hands of the devil, I have been hiding it in an unknown place. Before you came, the Witch Heart Demon had already arrived and wanted to get the whereabouts of the contract from me, but it's a pity that he didn't find what he wanted in the end." "So, you know where the contract is?" Johnny's eyes lit up, and he said eagerly, "Tell me, where is it? I need it." Facing his questioning, Carter looked in the direction of Chen Luo. nodded slightly towards him, and then said, "You guys come with me?" After saying that, Carter quickly walked towards the door. Walked out of the door, came to a big tree not far from the door, took the shovel lying next to the tree, and smashed it against the trunk of the tree. There was a sound of wood breaking. Holding only half of the stick, Carter stretched out his hand towards the broken part. Ma Zhao, then, under the gaze of the two people, he slowly took out a sheepskin scroll from the fracture and showed it to the two of them. "This is what you were looking for. Finally found it." Johnny looked happy when he saw the scroll in Carter's hand, and quickly stepped forward to take the scroll. "Johnny." At this time, Carter spoke again, looking at the other person, his face more serious than ever before. "You should understand. Once this thing falls into the hands of the devil, what will happen? If you fail, then this world will become a new hell. Even if this is the case, are you still going to do this?" Johnny paused and looked at him seriously. "Carter, you should understand that this time, I have no reason to lose." After looking at each other steadily for a long time, Carter's face gradually returned to calmness, and he handed the scroll in Johnny's hand and chuckled. "Then, everything is left to you. 5. Remind you. 3 things about reading, collection, recommendation, sharing 4.235.210. Emperorifing. Chapter 314, Part 1. Outside the church, Johnny got on his chariot and looked at Carter coming out to see off him. He seemed to remember something and asked curiously, "By the way, Carter, are you sure you don't want to come with us?" "I won't go." Carter waved his hand, looked in the direction of Chen Luo, and said with a smile, "If you were the only one, maybe I would still be willing to accompany you, but let's forget it now. I don't have much strength left in my body, and I don't want to waste it all here. Now that the mission here has been completed, I will start to enjoy the last time of my life. Goodbye, Johnny and the Godslayer." He took off the hat on his head and waved to Chen Luo and Chen Luo, with a relieved smile on his face. Seeing this, Johnny didn't try to persuade him anymore. After bidding farewell to the other party, he and Chen Luo turned around and left together. "The next step is up to you." Watching the two people gradually disappearing, Carter sighed with emotion. As he said before, if Johnny was the only one going on this trip, he might be really worried and might go with him. But now that the other party has Chen Luo, who can rival a demigod-level warrior, as his companion, he has great confidence in their journey. For 30 Congo, when the Witch Heart Devil came here just now to ask him about the whereabouts of the contract, he had already discovered that although the restrictions on the other party on the Earth were not as strong as those of Mephisto, they also had great consequences for him. Influence. At least in his feeling, the opponent's strength has definitely not reached the demigod level now. Compared with his normal state in hell, the strength of the Witch Heart Demon has obviously dropped by a notch. Although the strength he has shown on the Earth now is very powerful, it is not much different from Chen Luo. In addition, Chen Luo is accompanied by an equally powerful Ghost Rider. The two work together. There will be a high chance of defeating the Witch Heart Demon. It was precisely with this in mind that he was so relieved to hand over the contract that had been kept for hundreds of years to Johnny's hands. After handing over the contract, Carter felt relieved. Over the years, in order to protect the contract from falling into the hands of the devil, he has been carefully hiding here. Now that there is no restraint, he also wants to take advantage of his own life. In the last period of time, just take a good stroll in this world. However, just as he began to think about where to go next, the next moment, a very familiar voice suddenly sounded from behind him. "Carter Shirey, long time no see." Hearing this voice, Carter's expression changed drastically, and he turned around immediately. When he saw the figure appearing behind him, Carter's expression instantly became ugly, his brows furrowed, and he said word by word, "Mephisto?" Opposite him, Mephisto slowly raised his head. A red light flashed in his eyes. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and he slowly said, "My knight, I am here today to give you the last mission. When this mission is completed, you will gain true freedom. By the way, another thing, you don't have the right to refuse now." Chen Luo and Chen Luo knew nothing about what happened at the church. While walking on the road, Chen Luo checked his cell phone for a moment, and then said, "We are still about 1,000 kilometers away from our destination. So, how are you going to get there?" As he said that, Chen Luo moved his eyes to the motorcycle under the opponent, smiled and said, "You don't want to ride your chariot over there, do you? Any questions?" Johnny frowned slightly, his face full of confidence. "It's just 1,000 kilometers. If I transform at my speed, it will be enough in less than 3 hours. 3 hours? Chen Luo shook his head. "No, it's too long. I have a faster way here. What do you think? Do you want to try it?" "A faster way?" Johnny raised his eyebrows and said with interest, "Tell me about it." 5 minutes later, outside a village that looked a little dilapidated and desolate, there was a sudden shaking in the air, and the next moment, Chen Luo and his 2 figures appeared on the spot. Johnny was shaking on the spot with some dizziness. After a while, he gradually regained his composure. After coming back to his senses and seeing the scene in front of him, Johnny couldn't help but have a hint of surprise on his face and subconsciously asked, "This is?" "No need to doubt." Chen Luo nodded and said calmly, "We are already here." Looking somewhere, Chen Luo seemed to feel something, and the corner of his mouth raised a slight arc. "I advise you to be prepared. The other party has already discovered us." As soon as these words came out, Johnny's expression became stern, and without even thinking about it, the next moment, a blazing flame began to burn in his body. The flesh and blood melted, and after a while, a skull that was on fire and looked a bit trendy suddenly appeared in front of Chen Luo. Looking at the blazing flames above the other person's head, although he had seen it once, when he saw it again, Chen Luo couldn't help but marvel in his heart, feeling the magic of the creator. After waving to him, Chen Luo asked curiously, "How are you doing? Can you still recognize me?" His empty eyes stared straight at Chen Luo. After a while, the skull turned around silently, the flames in his hands condensed, and then he threw it somewhere in front of him. Obviously, now that he has mastered the transformation, Ghost Rider's consciousness has begun to be dominated by Johnny. Following his actions, the next moment, the wind roared, and a whirlwind visible to the naked eye suddenly appeared. It barely escaped the attack just now, and then appeared more than 10 meters in front of the two people. "It's him?" Seeing the person coming, Chen Luo's eyes flashed with light. Without saying a word, he immediately turned around and looked to his side. "Johnny, you're ready?" Hearing Chen Luo's words, Johnny didn't answer, but silently took off the chain wrapped around his body. The flames instantly wrapped around it, ready to attack at any time. Putting one hand on the opponent, Chen Luo thought and activated his teleportation ability. The next moment, before the Fengamo in front could react, the two of them appeared behind him instantly. "It's now." As soon as he finished speaking, Johnny immediately waved the chain in his hand. The hellfire burned blazingly on the chain, forming a vortex of flames in the air, wrapping Feng Mo's entire body. By the time the other party reacted and wanted to escape, it was already too late. As the fire of hell spread towards the center of the vortex, little bits of flames fell on him. The next moment, the pain that burned his soul instantly overwhelmed him. His reason was swallowed up, and he couldn't help but let out a heart-rending scream. Even though he desperately wanted to escape from the vortex, as the vortex took shape, a strong suction force came, tightly restraining him and preventing him from breaking free at all. The flames gradually spread to the whole body, and in just a few seconds, as the souls were burned out by the fire of hell, and with the last trace of wailing, the wind demon's body gradually turned into countless ashes, and then dissipated in the air. With the cooperation of Chen Luo and Chen Luo, in just a short moment, Feng Mo has fallen. Chapter 315, Part 1. Looking at the empty scene in front of him, Chen Luo's eyes moved slightly, and he looked to his side from the corner of his eye, feeling secretly in his heart. Although he had long thought that the power of hellfire could deal with these difficult demons, he was still a little surprised after seeing that the wind demon that had been entangled with him for a long time was successfully dealt with so quickly. At the same time, he also gained a new understanding of the power of hellfire. Easy. Next to Chen Luo, the skull with blazing flames on its head, like a human-shaped torch, suddenly spoke, then flicked one hand, retracted the chain, and wrapped it around him. He turned to look at Chen Luo, although his eyes were empty. But Chen Luo was strangely able to understand his meaning. "That's it? Is this the difficult devil you talk about?" "Chen Luo, you have to understand, big guy." Chen Luo shook his head helplessly. "Not everyone has a flame like you that can directly hurt the soul. If I had the ability like you, I would be the only one to fight the devil this time. That's it. Also, one more thing, you can deal with those demons, but I can deal with you." As he said that, Chen Luo completely ignored the flames on the other person's body, patted his shoulder and said with a smile, "If you understand, let's go." Looking at Chen Luo's retreating back, Johnny lowered his head and looked at the shoulder that had just been slapped by the other party. He was silent for a moment, and finally followed him without saying a word. Just as the two of them were moving forward, Village C in front of them. Wu Xinma, who had been waiting on the spot, seemed to feel something. He raised his head sharply and looked into the distance. The corner of his mouth raised a slight arc and said softly, "He came." Then the witch heart demon turned to look beside him and nodded slightly. "It's your turn next, water demon. Use everything you have to delay me as long as possible." It's still some time before dawn, but he came a little too early. Ghost Rider's power will only dissipate during the day, so no matter what, you have to delay the time until the sun rises. Do you understand? After hearing this, the original smile on the water demon's face gradually stiffened, and he pointed at himself in disbelief. "Boss, you mean to let me stop him alone?" Looking at the witch demon in front of him, his mood at this moment was just like what the nine-headed insect in Journey to the West said to Bin Boba, "Go and get rid of Tang Monk." He was speechless. "If I can do this, then it will be your turn to be the boss?" "Sure enough, My life is not my life, right? Ever since he saw Ghost Rider for the first time and witnessed how the old demon died in the opponent's hands, the water demon has understood that with his own strength, he is obviously no match for the opponent. So after hearing Wu Xianmo's order, he was suddenly filled with reluctance. As if seeing his concerns, Wu Xinma's eyes flashed slightly and he said calmly, "Don't worry, water devil. Actually, I asked Fengyamo to patrol outside a long time ago. After you pass, I will notify Fengyamo to go to support you. As long as you two cooperate, it shouldn't be a problem to delay the time." Wind Demon. The water demon's eyes lit up, and a glimmer of hope suddenly emerged in his heart. When he thought about it, if the Wind Demon cooperated with him, and with their ability, it would not be that difficult if they just delayed time. Thinking of this, the water demon perked up and immediately nodded in agreement. Looking at the other party's leaving figure, Wu Shima's eyes flashed with a cold luster, but soon, this luster disappeared in an instant, as if it had never appeared before. He had already felt it the moment the Wind Demon was killed, so it was obvious that there would be no reinforcements on the water demon's side. In other words, he has to stop the Ghost Rider alone. Although he knew that the other party's trip would probably never come back, the demon in his heart did not feel any pity. In his opinion, as long as the other party can delay for a little longer, his goal has been achieved. Definitely, even if he doesn't have to wait until the sun rises, with his current strength, Wu Xianmo is absolutely confident that he can defeat the opponent. The reason why he sent the water demon to consume him is just to be more foolproof. Just to increase the slightest chance of winning, he pushed his companions into the abyss without any hesitation. The cold cruelty of the devil is evident. But I really didn't expect that he would come so early. He slowly turned his head and looked at Luoshan beside him. A faint arc appeared on Wu Xinma's face. It seems that he really cares about you. Roxanne. I hope your man can bring me some good news later. Otherwise, you will have to say goodbye to this beautiful world. His fingers gently brushed Roshan's cheek. Wherever the fingers passed, the youthful and beautiful face quickly turned into decay, with purple meridians all over the face. It looked extremely hideous. Please give me flowers. Stop dreaming. Roseanne gritted her teeth and stared at the other party, her beautiful eyes shining with unyielding light. Johnny will definitely send you to hell. No matter what your plan is, you are doomed to fail. Interesting. The smile on Wu Xianmo's face gradually spread, and he couldn't help laughing loudly. Then let's wait and see. What kind of level can your knight be able to achieve? I hope he can bring me some fun. Otherwise, this game will be too boring. Just wait and see. Soon, this world will become my property. As long as I get the St. Fangyansa contract, then this world will become my own hell. 0. I will let my father know that this planet he has always coveted will eventually become my property. The crown on his head will belong to me sooner or later. Outside the village of Santa Fangyansa, there is a layer of river that surrounds the entire village. The fog above the river is so thick that you can't see your fingers. Under the moonlight, wisps of light are reflected on the water. It looks quiet, and at the same time gives people a chilling feeling. Outside the mist, Chen Luo and Chen Luo stood quietly on the spot, looking at the slowly flowing water below their feet. Chen Luo didn't say anything. Purple-red energy emerged from his fingertips, and then quickly wrapped Johnny beside him. Let's go. The fingers were gently raised, and the next moment, the two of them were pulled into the air by an invisible force and floated forward. Looking down at his feet, Johnny, who had returned to his human form, looked at Chen Luo in surprise. What kind of power is this? Magic. Chen Luo didn't look back. Yes, you heard it right. It's what you thought it was. It's amazing. Hearing Chen Luo's answer, Johnny shook his head, his face full of wonder. If you think about it carefully, this is the first time Chen Luo has shown an ability that is very different from ordinary people. The ability to neutralize his hellfire, the ability to teleport, and today's magic, and maybe that's not all he has. Looking at Chen Luo beside him out of the corner of his eye, Johnny had a deeper understanding of his temporary companion. Chapter 316, Part 1. Just as the two people were floating above the river, and below the slowly flowing river, a transparent figure slowly emerged, with its body surging like water. Raising his head and looking at the two figures above the river, the water demon's eyes were blank. Originally, he thought Johnny was the only one who came here, but looking at the strange figure next to Johnny, for some reason, the water demon suddenly had a bad premonition in his heart. But at this point, he couldn't help but think too much. If he just did nothing and let the two of them pass by, what would be waiting for him later? Just thinking about the consequences he would face in the future, he thought it's all a bit cold. Thinking of this, the water demon did not dare to neglect, and immediately launched an attack with a thought. Wow! The originally calm water flow suddenly began to become restless, with ripples appearing on the surface of the water. Immediately after, 753, a raging wave rose from the water, more than 10 meters high, roaring, and swept towards the two of them. Hearing the noise coming from behind, Johnny subconsciously turned around and looked back. When he saw the scene behind him clearly, Johnny's face instantly turned pale and he shouted in a hurry. "Chen, get behind your back. Stop shouting, I understand." Chen Luo didn't look back, with a calm look on his face. Turning around slowly and looking behind him, Chen Luo's voice sounded. "It looks like another demon has arrived. Leave this to me. As for the devil, I'll leave it to you." "Devil?" Johnny was confused and looked around. "Where is he?" Snapped. With a snap of his fingers, the purple energy lingering on Johnny instantly dissipated. Without the blessing of Chen Luo's magic, Johnny suddenly felt his body sink and fall downwards instantly. Fu *K. There was only time to leave such a sentence, and immediately afterwards, Johnny was instantly submerged into the water. "It's up to you, knight." Chen Luo didn't look back, looking at the approaching huge wave in front of him, stretched out one hand, and his ability started to operate instantly. Just as he came into contact with the huge wave in front of him, as ability activated, the energy contained in the huge wave instantly gathered on him and was finally sucked into his body. Without the blessing of energy, the huge wave instantly lost its forward momentum and suddenly stagnated in midair, motionless. After a moment of silence, the huge waves fell towards the water below, causing large ripples, and then slowly calmed down. After solving this little trouble, Chen Luo slowly lowered his head, looked at the water below. His eyes did not waver at all, and began to wait. At the same time, below the surface of the water, just when Chen Luo was dealing with the huge wave created by the water demon just now, he saw Johnny suddenly falling into the water for some unknown reason. The water demon ignored the situation above and instantly turned into a stream of water and swam rapidly in Johnny's direction. After all, he is very clear about his current mission. As long as he delays Johnny as much as possible and delays the time until the sun rises, then it is obvious that Chen Luo above him is somewhat irrelevant at this moment. As long as Johnny is kept here, then his mission will be completed. Thinking of this, he decisively gave up attacking Chen Luo and instead concentrated on dealing with Johnny, who fell into the water. Without the support of the water demon, the huge wave above the water could be calmed down so easily by Chen Luo. Otherwise, even if Chen Luo is not afraid of the opponent's attacks, he will obviously be helpless in dealing with this kind of demon that has mastered elementalization. Under the water, while Johnny was still secretly cursing Chen Luo, the next moment, the water demon appeared behind him, stretched out his hands, turned into two long whips of water, and quickly moved forward to tightly squeeze Johnny in front of him. Tangled up, Johnny, who was still in human form, had no time to react and was firmly restrained in place. Before he could make any move, the water demon thought, and his whole body seemed to turn into a sharp arrow, swimming towards the depths of the water in an instant. Following his movements, Johnny, who was bound by him, continued to go deeper into the water uncontrollably. In the process of rapid downward movement, with the rapid consumption of oxygen, Johnny, who felt that his head was slightly dizzy, did not dare to neglect, and immediately started the transformation without thinking. Boom! In less than a second, Johnny instantly transformed into the Ghost Rider form, with blazing flames burning all over his body. The moment it came into contact with the flames on his body, an unprecedented pain instantly came from the water demon's hands, and he subconsciously let out a painful cry, roaring, then quickly retracting his arms. With his movements, the restraints on Johnny's body immediately dissipated. After regaining his freedom, Johnny reacted very quickly. He immediately took off the chains wrapped around his body again, and the fire of hell wrapped around it. Without looking back, Johnny quickly moved backwards. Dump! The water demon, who was still busy putting out the flames on his arms, had no time to dodge and was instantly entangled by the long snake-like chain. As if the chain was alive, it quickly wrapped around the water demon, tightly binding it within it. The flames on the chain spread crazily towards him, constantly eroding and burning his soul. Feeling the severe pain on his body, the water demon roared crazily and painfully, and desperately began to break free, trying to escape from the blockade of the chain. Escape. However, in a state where the soul is constantly being eroded, the abilities that could have been easily used have become uncontrollable at this moment, and this just gives Johnny the opportunity to deal with the opponent. He pulled hard with both hands, and the next moment, the water demon was uncontrollably moved in front of him. Reaching out his hands, he firmly clasped the opponent's shoulders. In Johnny's pale and empty eyes, the burning flames turned into a raging whirlpool of flames. At the same time, a low and terrifying voice sounded. "Look into my eyes." The moment the two looked at each other, the eyes of repentance instantly activated. No! Looking at the opponent's movements, the water demon immediately understood the opponent's plan, let out a shrill scream, and tried desperately to escape from the place. 0.7 However, it was already too late. Not long after, the water demon's soul was burned away bit by bit in the blazing hellfire. As the soul gradually dissipated, his body quickly turned into streams of water, blending into the surrounding environment silently, and finally completely dissipate before your eyes. At this moment, it was only about a minute before Johnny fell into the water. Under the eyes of incomprehensible regret, the water demon also fell into Johnny's hands. Above the water, while Chen Luo was still waiting, the next moment, countless water splashed around, and Johnny emerged from the water in an instant, panting heavily. When his breathing finally calmed down, he slowly raised his head and looked at Chen Luo with eyes that were ready to burst into flames. Fuck, could you please tell me before you do this next time? It depends on the situation. Chen Luo shrugged and said with a chuckle. Chapter 317, Part 1. After dealing with the water demon, Chen Luo and the two walked forward again. Now in front of them, there was only the last enemy left. Witch Heart Demon. As the Lord of Hell, the son of Mephisto, if it weren't for the fact that he was on Earth at this moment, not his home court, and his strength was also limited, then there is no doubt that in Hell, he would have absolute demigod-level combat power. Chen Luo had a deep understanding of how terrifying a demigod-level powerhouse was during his battle with Apocalypse. If he hadn't had the trump card of energy conversion, I'm afraid that that time, with their power, even all of them combined wouldn't be Apocalypse's opponent. And even with this trump card, in the end, he had to rely on self-destruction to die with the other party. After using this last method, even though Chen Luo knew that he would not completely die, he came back again 8 years later. The price is also unacceptable to him. After all, we are getting closer and closer to the purple sweet potato spirit who wants to destroy life in the universe. If in the process, the other party successfully collects 6 infinite gems, just snap his fingers and transform all the 02 people from his tribe. Eliminated, then he is completely dead in the true sense. Therefore, in this battle, Chen Luo must ensure his safety no matter what. The past few years have been an extremely critical point in improving his strength. If he does not improve his strength during this period, then in the future battle with the Mad Titan, with his strength, once he faces the former alone, he will not have any chance. Odds of winning. At this point, Chen Luo also wanted to know more about the strength of the Witch Heart Demon just in case. Johnny, haven't you fought against the Witch Heart Demon before? How is his strength? Johnny slowly stopped and turned his head to look at Chen Luo, his face extremely solemn. Witch Heart Demon, he is very powerful. I tried to use the Eye of Penance to deal with him, but it didn't have any effect on him. After thinking about it, Johnny couldn't help showing a hint of frustration on his face. To be honest, if it were just me, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to win. Is this so? Chen Luo nodded clearly, thinking secretly in his heart. The information Johnny just mentioned was no different from what he remembered. According to the information he learned, the Witch Heart Demon was born without a soul, so the Eye of Confession could not directly attack the soul. According to the original plot, the reason why Johnny was able to defeat the opponent in the end was because the opponent obtained the contract of Saint Fangyansa and summoned the evil spirit to integrate. Because the evil spirit resided in the body, the evil spirit possessed the soul. Although his strength may be further improved, at the same time, Ghost Rider's attack can also have an effect on him. It was precisely because of this thought that when Johnny wanted to go to the cemetery to look for the contract, Chen Luo did not stop him. Otherwise, even if there is no contract, with his teleportation ability, he can rescue his girlfriend instantly as long as the other party is not paying attention. Mentally prepared, Chen Luo then took Johnny and quickly flew towards the village ahead. After a while, because there were no other obstacles ahead, the two of them reached their destination smoothly. Arriving at the center of the village, when the two saw the two figures standing in front of them, they gradually stopped. Witch Heart Demon. Seeing Roshan next to the Witch Heart Demon, Johnny looked eager and couldn't wait to move forward. Let go of Roxanne. You want to save her? The corner of Wu Xinma's mouth drew a cold arc and smiled. It's very simple. Give me what I want. As long as you hand over the Saint Fangyansa contract to me, I will let your girlfriend go. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will have to say goodbye to her. Johnny. Roshan moved her eyes forward, suppressing her inner fear, and shouted loudly. Leave me alone. You must not give the contract to this devil. Shut up. After hearing this, the smile on Wu Xinma's face disappeared, and a trace of cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He pinched the opponent's cheek with one hand and lifted him into the air with force, and a low roar came. Woman, if you care about your boyfriend so much, then I will help you now. After saying that, he squeezed the opponent's palm and slowly exerted force, as if he wanted to crush it to pieces. Stop. Seeing this scene, Johnny's face became even more anxious. He quickly took out the contract from his arms and said loudly, The contract is here. If you want it, let me go quickly. Huh. Turning his head and looking at the contract in Johnny's hand, Wu Xinmo's eyes lit up. He stretched out one hand and said, Give it to me. As long as you hand over the contract to me, I will let Saint Let Roxanne go first. Johnny showed no sign of weakness. What if I give you the contract and you don't keep your word? Upon hearing this, Wu Xinma glanced at the two of them, and then showed a disdainful sneer. Okay. Then she threw it away, and the next moment, Meng Shan flew upside down for more than 10 meters. Just when she was about to land, Chen Luo, who had been keeping quiet on the side, suddenly made a move. As soon as his feet moved, Chen Luo turned into a long afterimage, and came to Luo Shan's side in the blink of an eye, catching her with his hand. After placing it safely on the ground, Chen Luo kept moving, swaying, and immediately appeared behind Wu Xinma. Raising his right hand 353 high, the palm of his hand turned into a knife. A sharp explosion instantly sounded in the air, and he swung it towards the opponent's neck with extremely sharp force. However, it was this sudden blow that caused an accident at the moment when he was about to come into contact with the opponent. Boom! Along with a dull sound. I don't know when, facing Chen Luo's blow, Wu Xinma raised one hand and easily caught it. And it looks like it's effortless. You must know that it is night now. With Chen Luo's original strength and the blessing of the dark favorability, with this blow, Chen Luo's strength has already exceeded hundreds of tons. Even a behemoth like Optimus Prime can only be like a toy in the face of such power, with no resistance. However, even with such power, it still cannot cause harm to the Witch Heart Demon. Such a result is undoubtedly beyond Chen Luo's prediction. And that's not all. Leaving aside strength, even Chen Luo's rapid attack that was several times faster than the speed of sound was also able to be reacted by the other party. With just a little bit, Chen Luo already understood that in terms of physical fitness, now I'm afraid he is a bit weaker than the other party. It seems that we can't fight hard. This thought flashed through his mind, and when Chen Luo was about to withdraw and retreat, the next moment, he seemed to suddenly feel something, and his expression changed instantly. What's this? Chapter 318, Part 1. Just when Chen Luo was about to pull away, he suddenly felt an extremely strange force pouring out of the opponent's hand, and then spread quickly. Decline, death, decay. The moment he was exposed to this power, Chen Luo's expression changed, and a warning sign suddenly occurred in his heart. Without thinking, he subconsciously turned on the energy conversion ability, and she wanted to absorb and transform this power. However, even after using this ability, Chen Luo was surprised to find that the power seemed to be unaffected at all, moving forward quickly, starting from his palm, and quickly spreading upwards. As this force spread, Chen Luo's skin seemed to have had all its vitality sucked out, aging and decaying at a speed visible to the naked eye. The originally smooth skin turned into a blue-gray patch, just like a completely necrotic tree trunk. It looks extremely hideous and terrifying. If this continues, when this power spreads to the whole body, Chen Luo has no doubt that his body will completely decay. All the vitality will be absorbed, and then he will experience the story again. As soon as he thought about this, Chen Luo immediately took action. Without any hesitation, he raised his other hand, turned his palm into a knife, and without changing his expression, he slashed hard towards the wrist of his right hand. Phew! As the knife fell, Chen Luo's right wrist was instantly cut into 2 pieces, allowing him to successfully break free. The figure disappeared instantly, and the next moment, Chen Luo appeared next to Johnny. He lowered his head and looked at his right wrist. Because all the vitality had been absorbed, there was no blood flowing out of his wrist at this moment. It was a green-gray color, like a completely dead tree. But even so, due to the ability of super speed regeneration, the originally blue-gray skin of Chen Luo's right wrist quickly returned to ruddy color, and countless flesh and blood spread from the wrist. In just 10 seconds, Chen Luo's right hand grew again, restored to its original appearance. Clenching his fists, Chen Luo looked solemn, raised his head and looked forward, and asked in a deep voice, "What was that just now?" Looking at Chen Luo's intact right hand, Wu Xinma's eyes flashed with surprise, but he quickly regained his composure. Interesting. Human, it seems you still have some strength. But with this kind of strength alone, there is no way to compete with my divine power. Divine power? Upon hearing this term, Chen Luo's eyes moved slightly and he didn't speak, quietly waiting for the next sentence. It seems like you haven't taken that step yet, right? Looking at the two of them, Wu Xinmo became interested. Perhaps because he felt that he had a chance to win, he began to introduce the matter slowly. This kind of power can only truly reach this level when you truly cross the boundary of the extraordinary level. Only those who have mastered divine power can be considered true gods. Although due to environmental constraints, I am currently unable to fully utilize the power of my decaying divine power, it is enough to deal with you 2 ants who have never even stepped into the realm of demigods. As he spoke, a wisp of gray mist slowly emerged from Wu Xinmo's fingers, like a flexible snake, swimming around his fingers. It looked extremely weird. Divine power? This was the first time Chen Luo heard this term, and he couldn't help but be filled with doubts. You must know that during the battle with Apocalypse, he never felt what kind of magical power Apocalypse exerted at that time. If the other party also had the same level of power as that possessed by the witch heart demon, then even if he wanted to fight with the other party if we die together, we probably won't have any chance. But Chen Luo had forgotten at the moment that during his battle with Apocalypse, he had used the system's rewards to allow Charles's telepathy ability to break through the limit in a short time and reach the level of a 5th-level mutant. At that time, his ability had undergone a qualitative change. To a certain extent, this qualitatively changed spiritual power was equivalent to a kind of divine power. It was precisely because of the suppression of this spiritual power that Apocalypse could not use it. His real trump card gave Chen Luo a chance to win. Looking at the gray mist on the opponent's wrist, Chen Luo's eyes were full of solemnity, and he suddenly felt troubled. Okay, I've explained so much to you. Can you give me the things now? Looking at the contract in Johnny's hand, Witch Heart Demon showed an excited smile on his face, looking a little impatient. Faced with his words, Johnny did not speak, but turned to look at Chen Luo first. He nodded imperceptibly. Seeing Chen Luo's reaction, Johnny stopped hesitating and threw the contract in his hand over. After taking the contract, Wu Xinma could no longer contain the excitement in his heart. He slowly opened the scroll and read, "This is the pact of Saint Fang'ansa. All souls living here, I am calling you here to join me in turning this planet into a new hell." As soon as the words fell, the next moment, strong winds blew, flying sand and rocks, and strong winds blew in the face, accompanied by countless fine dust, obscuring the vision of Chen Luo and the others. Then, without letting them wait long, deep roars sounded from the surrounding ruins, just like the whispers of demons. Just hearing the sound made people feel dizzy and want to vomit. Looking around, Chen Luo clearly saw hundreds of skull-like evil spirits exuding some kind of deep black gas slowly emerging from them. They all looked at the witch heart demon holding the contract with empty eyes. Direction, as if something was attracting them, they rushed towards the direction of the witch heart demon. "Come on, become one with me. Become the king of this new hell." Opening his hands, Wu Xinmo's excited voice sounded. Countless evil spirits poured into Wu Xinmo's body. As more and more evil spirits integrated into his body, Chen Luo clearly felt that the aura of the other party was gradually rising. At the same time, in the sky above everyone's heads, dark clouds gathered here unknowingly, with lightning and thunder. It looked like the end of the world. Feeling the opponent's momentum that was starting to rise at a speed visible to the naked eye, Chen Luo's expression changed and he quickly turned his head. "Johnny, quick, use your special move now. We can't let him continue to get stronger. Once he truly enters the realm of demigods, it will be difficult for us to defeat him." Johnny obviously understood this and did not dare to neglect. With a thought, he instantly switched to Ghost Rider form. Then Chen Luo put his shoulder on his shoulder and activated his teleportation ability. The next moment, the two of them appeared in front of each other instantly. "Look into my eyes." Reaching out to grab the opponent's shoulders, Johnny's deep roar sounded. In the empty and pale eye sockets, the flame-like vortex rotates rapidly, looking directly into the eyes of the witch heart demon in front of him. And the ultimate move unique to Ghost Rider, the Eye of Repentance, is activated. Just as Chen Luo promised, after absorbing these evil spirits, Wu Xinmo now obviously has a soul in his body. Coupled with Chen Luo's unexpected blow, the other party is still immersed in power. In the feeling of growth, so without any precautions, he was successfully approached by the two people. When he came back to his senses, the last scene left in front of him was a pair of whirlpool-like eyes with fiery red eyes. A shrill scream rang out, and the witch heart demon obviously thought that in his current state, he was no longer immune to this attack, so he subconsciously wanted to use his divine power to fight against it without even thinking about it. As the exclusive power of demigods and gods, the power of divine power is obviously beyond the imagination of Chen Luo and Chen Luo. The moment the decaying divine power appeared in the soul, the originally burning fire suddenly stagnated and was successfully blocked by it. "Come down." As the fire slowed down, the eyes of the witch heart demon turned to blood red again, and the corners of its mouth slowly began to expand. Countless fangs with uneven layers were spread throughout it. Chapter 318, Part 2. It opened its big mouth and roared crazily. "Humans, you deserve to die." Chapter 319, Part 1. Not good. Seeing that the other party was showing a tendency to recover, Chen Luo looked solemn and said without looking back, "Johnny, continue to hold him back and make sure he doesn't wake up." Johnny said nothing, and the flames burned more intensely in his empty eyes, as if he had activated the Eyes of Repentance again. Affected by the Eye of Repentance, at this moment in the body of the witch heart demon, the originally decadent hellfire seemed to have received some fuel and was burning blazingly again. A severe burning pain came, and the witch heart demon couldn't help but let out a terrifying roar, and then he didn't dare to neglect, and quickly mobilized his divine power to start putting out the fire. Due to the limitations of the Earth's environment, the divine power he can mobilize is much smaller than in hell. After pouring most of the divine power he can mobilize into his soul, he can only contain the spread of the flames. But this is not enough. If we want to completely extinguish the flames, the most important thing at the moment is to get rid of the real owner who set the fire in front of us. Otherwise, if the other party strikes another penitent eye, then he may really die here. With his mind spinning, Wu Xinmo opened his eyes again, his red eyes staring straight ahead, and a low roar sounded. The divine power of decay wrapped around his hand, gray mist spread in the air, and with a fist with hundreds of tons of power, like a cannonball, it blasted 697 heavily at Johnny in front. Because the punch was too sudden, and the speed was far beyond what Chen Luo had imagined, Johnny received the punch head-on without any precautions, and his body flew out uncontrollably, smashing through several sides. The wall finally stopped just when Cancan was about to fly out of the edge of the village. At this moment, Johnny's entire body was laid flat on the wall in a large glyph shape, and his entire frame was instantly broken and shattered by the heavy punch just now. At the same time, there was a gray mist filling his chest, slowly spreading over it, spreading throughout the body. That is the decaying divine power possessed by the Witch Heart Demon. Under the erosion of the divine power, even with Ghost Rider's regenerative healing factor physique, there is an irresistible trend. The flames on his body dim at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the pale bones become dim, gradually changes to grayish-white. After seeing Chen Luo's situation before, Johnny already understood how difficult this kind of power was. He did not dare to be careless and immediately mobilized all his strength to block it. The hellfire on his body instantly began to burn. Although he was unable to fully exert the full power of this flame, in terms of its nature, this power was no less powerful than the existence of divine power, so after he tried his best to resist it, it still managed to withstand the spread of decadent divine power. Just when Johnny was trying his best to resist, Chen Luo on the other side also reacted immediately. A fierce look flashed in his eyes when he looked at the Witch Heart Demon. With a thought, he transformed into a bat and his power surged again. Point. All the muscles in your body were tense, and you blasted towards the opponent's face with all your strength. Ants, with your strength, how can you compete with God? Facing Chen Luo's blow, Wu Xinma sneered disdainfully, his palms filled with gray mist, and he pushed forward gently. Boom. A dull loud noise came, and the smile on Wu Xinma's face froze. Feeling the tremendous force coming from his hand, he couldn't help but take a few steps back. Feeling the numbness in his arm, he looked at Chen Luo. His eyes suddenly changed. He opened his big mouth full of ferocious teeth. His face was covered with black and blue meridians. His eyes were red, and a terrifying murderous intention emerged from his body like a low, demonic roar. Human, you pissed me off. I will pull your soul out of your body with my own hands, and then make it into the first demon in my new hell. From today on, forever and ever, you will always obey me. You should be honored, human, to be my slave. Ignoring the opponent's remarks, Chen Luo raised his right hand and quietly looked at the gray mist wrapped around his palm. His eyes flickered, and gradually, the corners of his mouth curved. Different from the first contact, this time, the corrosion speed of the skin on his palms has slowed down a lot at a speed visible to the naked eye. Under his super speed regeneration ability, the speed of flesh and blood regeneration on his body is actually the same as the speed of corrosion by divine power. Get up, it's a stalemate. Although Chen Luo, ACP, does not have the power to compete with the divine power at the moment, so even if the divine power is entangled and attached to him, he cannot dispel it. But with the blessing of the ability of super speed regeneration, he can now turn this divine power away. The force is firmly limited to a certain area and is not allowed to spread outward. Compared to just now, this is undoubtedly a major breakthrough. But this is not an explosive improvement in Chen Luo's power. The main reason is that most of the power of the Witch Heart Demon is spent on suppressing the fire of hell that is entangled in the depths of his soul at this moment. So he is able to use the power has weakened a lot, and the damage caused to Chen Luo is far less powerful than the last time. It seems, your divine power doesn't seem to work as well as before? He casually tore off the flesh and blood on his right hand stained with divine power and threw it aside. Without the hindrance of divine power, his right hand quickly began to recover, and within a few seconds it had returned to its original state. Then, it's my turn next. As soon as his feet moved, the next moment, Chen Luo turned into a sharp arrow and appeared in front of him. He raised his fists. The next moment, the fists like a violent storm hit the opponent like raindrops. Every punch was used. With all his strength, the fist containing hundreds of tons of power fell, and in an instant, bursts of sonic booms were heard in the air. Boom, boom, boom. A deafening sound rang out. Facing Chen Luo's attack, Wu Xinma's face flashed with a stern look, without any intention of dodging. He also waved his hands and moved forward to meet him. Human, your soul is destined to belong to me. The decaying divine power wrapped around his hands. At this moment, Wu Shima also exploded with all his strength. His hands turned into afterimages and collided with Chen Luo's fist one after another. The fight lasted only 10 seconds, and there were thousands of collisions between the two. Whenever his fist came into contact with the palm stained with divine power, Chen Luo's arm began to move towards Qing Qing at a speed visible to the naked eye under the erosion of divine power. Black transformation, vitality quickly passes away. Even with the blessing of super speed regeneration, it is completely unable to curb this trend. If this continues, it will take less than a minute for Chen Luo's body to be infected by divine power. Even with the resilience given by super speed regeneration, Chen Luo will not be able to avoid the fate of falling. However, faced with this situation, Chen Luo had no intention of stopping. On the contrary, his attacks became more violent, and he blasted forward regardless of the consequences. Boom. Finally, as Chen Luo landed another punch, this time, the gray mist that had been entangled in Wu Xinmo's hand disappeared without knowing it. Without the blessing of divine power, the opponent's speed suddenly slowed down at a speed visible to the naked eye. He had no time to stop him and was instantly hit in the face by Chen Luo. Boom. A terrifying huge force struck. Under Chen Luo's punch, Wu Xinmo instantly flew backwards for tens of meters. After smashing several walls, an old stone house tens of meters away collapsed, and then his entire body collapsed, suddenly submerged in the ruins. Chapter 320, Part 1. With an expressionless expression, he pulled off his arm, which had turned into a blue-black patch, and threw it to the ground. When the arm was no longer hindered by divine power, the next moment, the super speed regeneration took effect. In just a few seconds, countless flesh and blood extended outward from the end of the wound. Bones, blood vessels, muscles, skin were rapidly generated and finally recovered to its original appearance. After a new arm was generated, Chen Luo followed the same method and tore off the other arm. At the same time, Chen Luo raised his feet and walked slowly towards the direction of the witch heart demon. By the time he came to the ruins, his other arm had completely grown out and looked the same as before. It has to be said that without the obstruction of divine power, with the extremely strong vitality contained in Chen Luo's body and the god-level ability of super speed regeneration, as long as the entire body is not infected by divine power, he can recover at a speed that ordinary people cannot imagine. Come on, to a certain extent, this can be regarded as an alternative regenerative healing factor. It was precisely by relying on this ultimate self-healing to restore ability that Chen Luo had the confidence to confront the witch heart demon head-on. After realizing that the power that the other party could now mobilize was already within his tolerance, Chen Luo was heartbroken. I immediately made a plan. He wants to use this head-on approach to further consume the opponent's divine power. Once the opponent has no extra divine power, the situation will undoubtedly shift to their side. Just as Chen Luo thought, after the violent attack just now, in order to resist Chen Luo's offensive, the opponent had to use divine power to fight. However, at this moment, more than half of his divine power is used to suppress the hellfire in his body, and only a small half of the divine power that can be used is only half. Therefore, under Chen Luo's consumption tactics just now, the remaining half of the divine power is quickly bottomed out, and it is necessary to know, he wouldn't have been unable to resist Chen Luo's attack just now. Boom. In front of Chen Luo, under the ruins that were pressed down by countless stones, a huge boulder suddenly shattered. Then, a pale-looking arm poked out from the ruins. Then, a familiar figure slowly stood out from the ruins. Rise. The only difference from before is that after withstanding Chen Luo's unreserved punch, without the protection of divine power, most of Wu Xinmo's head was exploded in an instant. Now, there is only a small half of his head above his neck. Connected to it, countless black liquids flow out from the broken edge, which looks extremely strange and ferocious. Although most of the head was broken by a punch, such injuries were obviously still unable to cause fatal damage to the witch heart demon, especially after becoming one with those hundreds of evil spirits. The witch heart demon now has even more with a physique like a regenerative healing factor. His recovery power is almost the same as that of Chen Luo. Under Chen Luo's gaze, the broken skull tissue, blood, and bones of the surrounding Wu Xinmo quickly turned into streams of black liquid, as if they were alive, and quickly rushed towards Wu Xinmo. As the black liquid poured into the broken head, his head gradually returned to its original shape at a speed visible to the naked eye, and no scars could be seen anymore. Scarlet eyes stared straight in the direction of Chen Luo. The murderous intent in his eyes was completely undisguised, and the sharp teeth full of fangs opened. Even covering half of his face, a terrifying roar sounded. Damn human! When I finish you off, I will extract your soul alive and make it my food. You dare to offend the future king of hell, human being. Like this, you have to pay the price for it. Seeing the other party's arrogant look, Chen Luo's expression did not change, and he even wanted to laugh a little in his heart. Really? Then let's see who can make it to the end today. As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Luo thought and disappeared instantly. This was definitely not because he wanted to escape, but because he teleported directly to Johnny. In the battle between Chen Luo and the Witch Heart Demon just now, Johnny finally had difficulty in getting rid of the decaying divine power attached to him. It's just that because most of his energy was consumed in removing the divine power, his body has not fully recovered. Half of his body is still in a shattered state, looking extremely miserable. But now Chen Luo couldn't control that much and came directly to him, and then instantly brought him to the front of Wu Xengo. Quick, Johnny. His divine power has been almost exhausted. Give him the final blow. While speaking, Chen Luo dodged behind Wu Xinma, held the opponent's arms tightly, and controlled him firmly in place. Zero. Please give me flowers. Hearing these words, Johnny's spirit surged. Without thinking, the few remaining flames in his empty eyes quickly condensed and rotated, and finally slowly formed a deep vortex shape, staring straight ahead. As Johnny used all his remaining energy and tried his best to display the eye of repentance again, the Witch Heart Demon suddenly let out a shrill wail. At this moment, deep in his soul, there was a fire of hell. With the influx of energy, without the extra divine power to suppress it, the soul in his body suddenly began to burn again, rapidly eroding his soul. Damn humans. You want me dead. You have to pay the price for me too. 0-0 At this critical moment, the Witch Heart Demon had completely lost his mind, roared crazily, and then completely released the suppression of the hell fire in the depths of his soul. Then, he concentrated all his remaining divine power and exploded. You all go to hell with me. Under his reckless outburst, at the feet of the Witch Heart Demon, a black mist surged. Every mist seemed to have life, turning into countless tiny tentacles. He grabbed at the three of them. Looking at the black mist under his feet, Chen Luo's heart suddenly froze. Without thinking, he raised his right foot and kicked Johnny in front of him out of the scope of the mist. Then, with a thought in Chen Luo's mind, he immediately I also want to teleport away. However, the next moment, Chen Luo's expression changed. Looking at the unchanged environment around him, his heart sank for a moment. Teleportation failed? Before he could think more, suddenly, a low and hoarse voice sounded in his ears. I've finally waited for it. The soul of the Godslayer will also become my collection in the future. Chen Luo frowned. Before he could figure out where the sound came from, another sound came right after. Look into my eyes. Subconsciously turning his head, a pair of empty eye sockets instantly came into view, with two flame vortexes spinning continuously. Just as they looked at each other, Chen Luo only had time to let out a low roar before he instantly lost consciousness. Chapter 321, Part 1. At this moment, on the ground under Chen Luo's feet, countless black mist spread upwards as if alive, quickly covered Chen Luo's legs, and then pulled him downwards together with the Wu Xinma who was tightly clinging to him at the moment. At the last moment of his life, Wu Xinma exploded the remaining divine power in an instant, forcibly opened the door to hell, and wanted to drag Chen Luo and Johnny into hell together. After exploding all his divine power, without the suppression of divine power, the soul in his body was completely ignited by the fire of hell. As the soul burned out, this powerful man, whose strength even reached the level of demigod, was like this. He died in frustration due to the combined efforts of Chen Luo. But at this time, Chen Luo still had a way to leave here, but his first choice at that time was to let Chongding leave this area first. And just because the 550 was delayed for just a few seconds, it happened to give someone who had been waiting aside the opportunity to explode all the remaining divine power and create a barrier covering the black mist, trapping Chen Luo was tightly surrounded. At the same time, in order to get Chen Luo's soul, he also added another big news. That is the ultimate move from Ghost Rider, Eye of Penance. What he wants to get is not just the soul of an extraordinary vampire. This time, what he wants to get is the soul of a demigod. From his point of view, Chen Luo is already at the junction of metamorphosis at this moment. All he needs to do is give him a gently push from behind to induce metamorphosis, and then personally take action to transform it into a demon. Then you will get a demigod-level demon fighting power. As for how to guide it, hellfire is a good fuel. Although this kind of flame from hell is very lethal, if it can withstand the erosion of hellfire, to a certain extent, it can also promote the metamorphosis of the soul. In addition, during Chen Luo's first fight with Johnny, he had seen with his own eyes that Chen Luo had the means to resist the fire of hell. Although the Eye of Penance was an attack that directly acted on the soul, Chen Luo wanted to Luo should also have some means to alleviate it. Definitely, if Chen Luo can't survive, then the most he will lose is an extraordinary soul. He can still afford such a loss. Although in his opinion, the probability that Chen Luo could pass this test was very slim, but since there was such an opportunity to get a demigod-level demon to join his army, how could he easily miss it? Therefore, in order to ensure the success of his plan, Carter Shirey, who had been living in seclusion for hundreds of years, fell into his sight. After exhausting the last bit of energy and casting the eye of repentance, Medical Shri's life also came to an end. The fire gradually dissipated, and as Carter returned to human form, his sanity also returned at this moment. Looking at Chen Luo, whose eyes were covered with blazing fire at this moment, Carter opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he didn't even have time to say a word, and just disappeared in front of everyone with the wind. Carter. Chen. Seeing this scene, Johnny, who was kicked out of the black mist by Chen Luo, struggled to get up. Because the hellfire had weakened significantly, Johnny, whose body had not yet recovered, dragged a broken leg with a ferocious expression on his face and forcibly began to transform. Dim flames rose from his body. He waved the chain on his body with one hand and swung it forward, trying to use the power of the chain to take Chen Luo out of the black mist. However, when his attack reached the area shrouded in black mist, there was a sudden crisp sound in the air, as if it had hit some obstacle, and the chain instantly fell downwards, unable to make any progress. Seeing this scene, Johnny paused for a moment, and then continued to attack without hesitation. But no matter how hard he tried, facing the barriers set up by the Lord of Hell, he still had no choice but to watch Chen Luo's body sink to the ground bit by bit. That's enough. Johnny. Suddenly, Mephisto's voice sounded. My knight, you have completed the mission I gave you. Now, go and enjoy your life. Until the next mission comes. As for your companion, I will accept the soul of the Godslayer who defeated Apocalypse. Don't worry, the next time I bring him back, it will be the beginning of my true conquest of this planet. Ancient One, just watch, the planet you are guarding will be mine sooner or later. One day, I will make it a new hell. A low and hoarse laugh sounded, and then, as Chen Luo gradually sank into the ground, and when the black mist dissipated, the laughter slowly dissipated in the air. List. After the power was exhausted, Johnny could no longer maintain the Ghost Rider form and returned to the human form. He watched Chen Luo disappear in front of his eyes, with a look of shock and anger on his face. Johnny. After seeing that everything was over, not far away, Roseanne finally plucked up the courage and jogged all the way to Johnny, looking at him worriedly. Are you okay? However, in the face of his girlfriend's concern, Johnny had no intention of answering at this moment. He stared blankly ahead at the place where Chen Luo disappeared, saying nothing. Let's not talk about Johnny's side for now. The other side. The moment he saw Carter's eyes, Chen Luo's soul was surrounded by a blazing fire. At the same time, deep in his consciousness, everything he had experienced before was replayed in his mind like a slide. Even the memories before he came to this world seemed to come alive and began to occupy his mind. All the enemies he has experienced in the past decades, the gangsters he met when he was a child, his girlfriend who fell in love with him for several years when he grew up and finally defrauded him of all his wallet and gave him a hat, came to this world the 5.0 person killed in the past, the hundreds of thousands of vampires killed in the past, the skeleton monarch on Skull Island, Megatron and the other Decepticons. Definitely, and the most important being, the original mutant who almost unified the world 8 years ago. Apocalypse. These enemies seem to have come to life one by one, appearing in the depths of his consciousness in a mighty manner, just like the tide of corpses in the movie Resident Evil, roaring and rushing towards Chen Luo's direction. His consciousness was as if it was being burned by fire, and severe pain continued to emerge from the depths of his soul. Chen Luo's face was ferocious, his hands full of pain covered his head, and his eyes were occupied by blazing flames. Just when he was about to die from this severe pain, when he lost consciousness, a familiar voice sounded the next moment. Ding! It has been detected that the Witch Heart Demon has died, and rewards will be distributed now. Chapter 322, Part 1. Ding! It has been detected that the Witch Heart Demon has died, and rewards will be distributed now. The permission for directional space jump, one time, has been obtained. Ding! It has been detected that the host soul is now under attack. Now turn on the defense mode. Due to interference from some unknown force, the defense effect is weakened and the host's waking time is reduced. As the system prompts fell, the next moment, a sense of coolness instantly spread through his mind. The severe pain in his mind gradually weakened. Although he still felt a faint headache, compared to the previous pain of his soul being burned, there was no doubt that it's been a lot easier. Although he regained consciousness, Chen Luo's consciousness still remained deep in his soul. Seeing the scene in front of him like a wave of corpses rushing towards him, Chen Luo's expression suddenly changed. For some reason, he suddenly had a hunch that if there was no way to deal with these people, he might still be unable to escape from his consciousness. Subconsciously, he clenched his fists, feeling the power surging within his body. The corners of Chen Luo's mouth slowly raised a slight arc. It seems the power is still there. If that's the case, then I'll play D2 with you. As he spoke, Chen Luo slowly unfolded a pair of wide batwings from his back, moved his feet, and shot out like a sharp arrow, rushing towards the crowd in front. The next moment, Chen Luo came to the front of the crowd, looking at the figure in front of him who had been in love with him for several years in his previous life. A cold light flashed in his eyes, his palm turned into a knife, and he slashed down without any hesitation. In just an instant, Chen Luo cut the opponent into 2 pieces with a knife, and then dissipated. After getting rid of the opponent, Chen Luo kept moving, dragging his body through a long afterimage and started slaughtering in the crowd. Just as Chen Luo started killing, as the black mist wrapped around him slowly dissipated, unknowingly, when Chen Luo reappeared, his body had already appeared in a vast and boundless red continent. There are countless cracks on the ground spreading around. If you look closely, you can see that the entire land is reddish-brown, and under the cracks, there are several red magma flowing in it. The pungent sulfur gas turned into countless streaks of white smoke rising from the cracks. Around Chen Luo, at a glance, there were more than a dozen volcanoes standing, with streaks of black smoke erupting outward from time to time, along with streaks of lava. It's flowing outside, and it looks like a doomsday scene. Just when Chen Luo's consciousness was immersed in fighting with those old friends from the past, a low and majestic voice sounded above the hell where Chen Luo was. "My people, I summon you in the name of the Lord of Hell, Mephisto." As Mephisto's voice sounded, the next moment, there was a rumble on the ground. Like thousands of horses galloping, violent vibrations suddenly sounded in this hell. Then, around Chen Luo, a black streak emerged from the junction in the distance. Countless beast-like roars gradually became clearer, from far to near, roaring and rushing towards Chen Luo. Viewed from the sky, with Chen Luo as the center and a radius of nearly 1,000 miles, countless demons scattered in this hell were summoned by Mephisto. They seemed to have lost their minds, their eyes were red, and they began to gather in unison. There is a giant demon with a pair of goat-like long horns on its head, similar in appearance to a goat, and about 3 meters in size. There is also a demon with a bull's head, green and black skin all over its body, and a huge mace in its hand. Some demons look like snakes, spitting out snake letters from time to time, with jet black venom dripping from their mouths, looking extremely ferocious. Demons of various shapes gathered together, with red eyes. Although their sanity had disappeared, under the power of Mephisto, these demons had no tendency to fight. They let out bursts of terrifying roars and quickly moved towards Chen Luo's direction is approaching. Just a rough look at it. Within a radius of thousands of miles, countless demons are densely gathered together. Even at a rough look, their number is no less than 1,000,000. The reason why Mephisto summoned so many demons was to prepare for the metamorphosis after Chen Luo. Once he really succeeds in resisting the erosion of hellfire and his soul successfully breaks through the limit as he hopes, then in order to truly reach the demigod level, his soul will also need a lot of nutritional supplements. Taking himself as an example, when he successfully broke through to demigods, he finally succeeded after devouring millions of souls. Therefore, if Chen Luo wants to succeed, he also needs a certain amount of food. And these demons are the meeting gifts he prepared for Chen Luo. Mephisto has never been stingy with his gifts for the talents he values. Definitely, the premise of all this is that Chen Luo can successfully survive it. Once he fails, these demons will not be the food prepared for him. On the contrary, Chen Luo will be regarded as food for them. Although these millions of demons are a gift prepared by Mephisto for Chen Luo, it is also a test for Chen Luo. Judging from the speed at which these demons are advancing, they will arrive at Chen Luo's location in no more than 5 minutes, completely tear him into pieces, and then devour him whole. In other words, once Chen Luo fails to wake up within these 5 minutes, his fate is already doomed. Once Chen Luo is completely killed by these demons, even if he can be resurrected, it will probably be many years later. By then, when Thanos arrives, once his plan is realized and all his kind are wiped out, he will have no chance of resurrection. 830 The vibrations on the ground gradually became more violent. At the speed of these demons, they were approaching at a speed of tens to hundreds of meters per second. As time passed by, gradually, the distance between this wave of demons and Chen Luo became closer and closer. Thousands of miles, 500 miles, 300 miles, 100 miles, 5,000 meters, 3,000 meters, 1,000 meters, 500 meters. If this speed continues, in 5 seconds at most, this army of millions of demons will be at Chen Luo's side. Just as the opponent was approaching quickly, deep in Chen Luo's consciousness, his battle was reaching its final moment. Although less than 5 minutes had passed in the outside world, deep in his consciousness, the battle had lasted for several hours. With Chen Luo's full strength, the battle was finally coming to an end. The original crowd gradually became sparse under Chen Luo's ruthless slaughter, until finally, when he punched the roaring Megatron in front of him into pieces, the only people who were still standing in front of him at this moment were the last figure was left. Apocalypse. With a flash of figure, Chen Luo appeared in front of the other party instantly. He was silent for a moment, and then slowly spoke. Next, there are only 2 of us left. Apocalypse. Chapter 323, Part 1. Facing Chen Luo's words in front of him. Although this apocalypse only existed in his consciousness, it was different from other enemies that Chen Luo had dealt with before. It actually seemed to have its own consciousness, and he slowly said, "We meet again, vampire." There were streams of azure energy flowing on the dark skin, and powerful aura spurted out, filling Chen Luo's entire consciousness space. Rumble. The space seemed to be shaken by this momentum and began to vibrate slightly. Under Chen Luo's feet, the dark brown earth that existed as if it was substantial cracked instantly. Countless cracks spread from all directions, the earth collapsed, and countless rubble shattered and scattered. It was like a doomsday scene. This time, without the help of that mutant, you have no chance of defeating me. Then give it a try. Chen Luo smiled slightly, then moved his feet and disappeared instantly. His body was stretched into a semicircle like a big bow. His muscles tensed, and then he punched out hard. Boom. The punch was like a dragon, with a force of hundreds of tons. At this moment, the air in front of Chen Luo seemed to have turned into a wrinkle. Circles of milky white air waves erupted in the air, spreading violently with his fist as the center. There was a rumble. The atmosphere seemed to be shattered. Chen Luo's fist dragged out a long afterimage and blasted forward like thunder. Then let me see how you, a lowly vampire, can defeat me? Apocalypse laughed loudly without making any movement. The surging energy in his body emerged. Under his control, it finally formed a blue thunderbolt as thick as an adult's waist and shot towards Chen Luo. Facing this long thunder and lightning dragon, Chen Luo had no intention of evading it and rushed straight towards the center of the thunder and lightning. The energy conversion ability was activated at the right time. At the moment of contact with lightning, the energy began to be converted instantly, and then all was absorbed by his body and disappeared without a trace. Chen Luo's speed did not slow down at all. He faced the thunder and lightning in front of him and appeared in front of the opponent in an instant, hitting him directly in the face. Huge amounts of power exploded instantly. Under Chen Luo's punch, Apocalypse's entire body flew backwards uncontrollably. The protective shield covering his body at this moment did not protect him at all. The moment it came into contact with Chen Luo's fist, the energy on the protective shield was instantly absorbed by Chen Luo, hitting the target with great accuracy like breaking a bamboo. After flying upside down for hundreds of meters, Apocalypse hit the ground hard, creating a huge amount of deep pit in the ground, which was then buried by the ruins formed by countless rubbles. Boom. A powerful energy wave erupted instantly, countless rubbles rose into the sky, and smoke filled the sky. Damn it. I'm going to make you pay. Looking at the figure walking out of the ruins, Chen Luo's face was calm, and there was no wave in his eyes. Everyone can tell lies. Lifting his feet and taking steps, Chen Luo walked forward step by step. All the energy absorbed from the opponent just now began to transform. After turning it all into kinetic energy, the ground beneath his feet instantly cracked, countless gravels scattered, and his body dragged out a long afterimage, moving forward at a speed far faster than before. Run. With the blessing of this energy, Chen Luo instantly shattered the air in front of him. A terrifying sonic boom sounded from the air, and his body turned into an indestructible hammer and crashed down forward. With the energy he had just absorbed from Apocalypse, this time, the power Chen Luo could exert was also far greater than before. It was increased several times in an instant. Even Apocalypse's expression changed instantly when faced with such an attack. With a thought, energy surged through his body, and the next moment, Apocalypse disappeared from the spot. Instantly appeared behind Chen Luo. The energy in his right hand surged, and he stamped heavily towards Chen Luo. This time, Chen Luo did not choose to dodge, but directly received the blow head-on. Without the defense of energy conversion, the terrifying energy torrent instantly penetrated his steel body, burning a big hole in his chest, and the flesh and blood around the edge of the hole was full of scorch marks. It looks extremely hideous and terrifying. Lowering his head and looking at the big hole in his chest, Chen Luo's mouth slowly curved. It seems that your strength is not as strong as I thought. What? Where is your magical power? Why don't you let me see it? Hearing this, Apocalypse said nothing. His eyes were red, the energy in his hands gathered crazily, and he chose to take action again without any hesitation. Chen Luo showed no sign of weakness, waving his fists and striking at the opponent like a violent storm. This time, Chen Luo showed no reservations and used all his strength to confront Apocalypse. With Chen Luo's full strength, for a while, he was not at a disadvantage when facing Apocalypse. During the confrontation with Apocalypse, Chen Luo gradually understood one thing. That is, the current opening did not seem to be as strong as he imagined. Although he doesn't know why, the Apocalypse deep in his consciousness does not seem to have the power of a demigod like the witch heart demon he solved before. What Chen Luo doesn't know is that although the Eye of Repentance is a magical skill that can directly attack the soul, by reflecting the past enemies, it appears deep in the consciousness, and along with the burning of hell fire, the soul is burned out step by step. But correspondingly, the enemy that this attack can reflect and the maximum strength it can exert are also shaped based on the target's memory. So unfortunately, even though Apocalypse actually possesses the power of a demigod, he did not have the opportunity to display his divine power during the battle with Chen Luo and others. Therefore, at this moment, deep in Chen Luo's consciousness, the reflected strength of Apocalypse has not reached his peak state. Therefore, even though his current strength is much stronger than that of ordinary extraordinary peaks, it is still within the range of Chen Luo's response. With the help of the energy conversion ability, Chen Luo's strength is now much stronger than when he fought Apocalypse. Now, although he cannot reach the level of a demigod because his mental attributes have not broken through the limit, he is still a being with extraordinary combat power. So under such circumstances, it's not surprising that the two can tie. And as time goes by, because of the existence of the ability of energy conversion, Chen Luo's continuous fighting ability is also a level higher than Apocalypse. As Apocalypse's energy continued to be absorbed, Chen Luo could clearly feel that the opponent's power was gradually weakening. Another few minutes passed. Finally, when energy absorption reached the last limit, Chen Luo thought, and all the energy was instantly transformed into a raging energy wave. The energy gathered in his hands, like a pair of gloves, wrapping his hands tightly. Both hands instantly reached forward. Facing Chen Luo's blow, Apocalypse just wanted to dodge, but due to excessive energy consumption, the teleportation ability was also slightly delayed. It was this slight delay that gave Chen Luo the opportunity. His hands were like lightning, drawing an afterimage in the air, and then instantly penetrated Apocalypse's chest. Blue electric light surged, and Chen Luo used both hands to tear it outward. Endless rain of blood poured into the air, and with the last unwilling roar, Apocalypse's figure finally slowly dissipated into the air. Chen Luo stood there, his body bathed in blood, his eyes closed tightly, as if he was feeling something, without saying a word. At the same time, just as the last enemy fell, drastic changes were taking place under Chen Luo's feet. Picture 324, Part 1. The earth covered with magma began to heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the barren land, a touch of green gradually spread outwards, and then quickly spread across the entire land. At the same moment, the flame entangled deep in Chen Luo's soul was also decomposing and dissipating at a speed visible to the naked eye, and finally slowly disappeared. In the outside world, as the millions of demons quickly approached, just when they were about to arrive in front of Chen Luo finally shuddered, and then slowly opened his eyes. Boom! The ground trembled violently, and when they saw Chen Luo disappearing in front of them, these demons stopped one after another and looked around, with a trace of confusion flashing in their scarlet and violent eyes. The next moment, the air in front suddenly shook, and then, Chen Luo's figure slowly emerged. He looked at the reddish-brown land under his feet, raised his head, and looked at the scarlet sky above his head. Finally, when Chen Luo saw the strange-shaped creatures in front of him, he was stunned for a moment, and then he immediately reacted. Is this hell? Just when he was still a little surprised, the familiar 853 prompt sounded. Ding! It is detected that the host is out of danger. The defense mode is released. Ding! It has been detected that the host soul has broken through the limit, and the second stage of the road to becoming a god has been completed ahead of schedule. It is detected that the host's level 1 task has not been completed. Please execute it as soon as possible. If you cannot complete the level 1 mission within 1 day, the progress of the second phase of the mission will start accruing again. Hearing the system prompt, Chen Luo's eyes narrowed and his brain started working rapidly. Obviously, according to the system prompts, in the confrontation with the Hellfire just now, he seemed to have inadvertently completed the second stage of the road to becoming a god. Similarly, because the second phase of the mission was completed ahead of schedule while the level 1 mission was not yet completed, there is now a time limit on the level 1 mission. Once the mission cannot be completed within the stipulated time, the second phase of the mission will also be reset. In other words, if he cannot collect millions of souls today, if he wants to activate the second phase of the mission again in the future, then he will have to withstand another attack from the Eye of Penance, Acti. But by then, it's hard to say whether the Eye of Confession can still work on him. Thinking of this, Chen Luo's face instantly became serious. It seems that we must complete the level 1 mission as soon as possible. But if you want to collect millions of souls, what should you do? Wait. As if thinking of something, Chen Luo suddenly raised his head and looked forward, his eyes gradually lighting up. If it were these demons, could they? Roar. Angry roars sounded, and countless pairs of red eyes stared in the direction of Chen Luo, with different shapes, and they all ran towards Chen Luo at the same time. Very well. Godslayer. At the same time, a familiar voice sounded above Chen Luo's head. I really saw you right. You really passed the test of Hellfire. You must be very hungry now, right? Don't worry, I have already prepared food for you. Enjoy your dinner. When you officially metamorphosis into a demigod, I will take action to truly transform your soul into a demon. At that time, I will give you endless glory and power, and in return, you will use your eternal life to serve me." Hearing this, Chen Luo subconsciously raised his head and understood instantly. Mephisto? Obviously, the millions of demons in front of him did not appear out of thin air. When he ordered Carter to use the Eye of Repentance on Chen Luo, he had already thought of such a result. In order to ensure that Chen Luo could successfully metamorphosis, he also deliberately delivered the food he needed to metamorphosis to a demigod. To a certain extent, in order to obtain a demigod-level soul, he spared no effort. As for whether Chen Luo would pose a threat to him after he successfully broke through the demigods, he was not worried at all about this. As one of the kings of hell, Mephisto is a true god. Even if Chen Luo succeeds in breaking through and becoming a demigod, he will not pose any threat to him. Chen Luo also knows this very well. Although he understood this, he was not worried at all. He looked forward and the corners of his mouth slightly curved. "If that's the case, then I won't be polite. Mephisto, I accept your gift." As soon as he finished speaking, the next moment, behind Chen Luo, a pair of wide bat wings stretched out instantly. As the wings flapped, a strong wind blew, and the strong air flow centered on Chen Luo and spread rapidly to the surroundings. Under Chen Luo's full speed, his speed has reached several times the speed of sound. At the moment when he broke through the sound barrier, a circle of white air waves appeared in the air, accompanied by a huge amount of sound. Chen Luo it turned into a sharp arrow and crashed straight into the wave of demons ahead. Boom! With the blessing of the body of steel and Chen Luo's speed, Chen Luo immediately displayed extremely terrifying lethality and destructive power. Just the moment he rushed into this wave of demons, accompanied by wailing sounds, dozens of people were heard. Hundreds of demons were instantly smashed into countless pieces by Chen Luo. Blood, flesh, and broken bones flew everywhere. Looking down from a high altitude, a blood-colored thread visible to the naked eye suddenly appeared in a black ocean. However, in less than a moment, it was filled by other demons who came one after another. Although the number of these demons is endless, it is a pity that with their strength, they cannot pose any threat to Chen Luo. Faced with the absolute disparity in strength, even though these demons were constantly attacking Chen Luo, they were still cleared away by Chen Luo at an extremely fast speed. 1 hour, 2 hours, more than 10 hours passed. Under the influence of energy absorption, Chen Luo was like a perpetual motion machine on the battlefield, always moving at a super high speed. The efficiency of the slaughter harvested the lives of these demons. As every demon fell, what Chen Luo didn't notice was that on the system panel, the display panel that recorded the number of souls collected, the balance was soaring upwards. 10, 100, 1000, 1000000. As the last demon fell, when Chen Luo stood on the same spot again, finally, the system prompt sounded again. Ding! Congratulations to the host. Chapter 325, Part 1. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The Level 1 mission on the road to becoming a god has been completed. The number of souls collected has been enough. Now we start the second phase of the mission. The second phase of the mission has been completed. The soul boundary has been broken. Now start the last step. Kill the demigods and make thousands. The last step has been completed. The number of demigods killed, x2. The road to becoming a god has been completed and the divine power has begun to condense. As the system's words fell, at the same time, a brand new power began to emerge in Chen Luo's body. The blood rushes in the body, and the body temperature begins to increase at a speed visible to the naked eye. White steam appears on the surface of the body. The body is like a cooked prawn, and the whole body is red. He let out an uncontrollable roar of pain, and the batwing spread out from behind, as if it was blocking the sky and the sun, firmly covering his body in the shadow. As the temperature got higher and higher, his body surface became redder and redder. Even his steel body could not bear such high temperature. His body began to melt uncontrollably. In the end, Chen Luo's entire body melted into a pool of blood-red liquid, gathering on the ground. Although his body has completely melted, the strange thing is that Chen Luo's consciousness is still awake at this moment, and he can clearly feel that his spirit is gradually breaking through a certain limit at this moment and starting to expand uncontrollably. If he calls up the attribute panel to check at this moment, he can find that in the mental attribute item, the number marking 499.9 is flickering on and off, and finally becomes blurry. When the number on the panel showed traces again, instead, the number had quietly changed at this moment. 500. The moment this number successfully exceeded 500, the next moment, Chen Luo's spirit began to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. As the spirit officially broke through the limit, Chen Luo's soul also began to undergo metamorphosis. During the process of metamorphosis, Chen Luo clearly felt that the scope of his perception was also rapidly expanding. Hundreds of meters, kilometers, 10,000 meters. In the end, the pace of expansion slowly stopped until it reached a range of 100,000 miles. At this moment, His perception range has increased hundreds to thousands of times compared to before. In such a range, once the teleportation ability is activated at this time, his movement speed will also be greatly increased. And as his mental attributes officially break through the limit, when his mental attributes further increase, his perception range will also further increase. In the end, it is not impossible to travel across the entire Earth in 1 year. If the increase in mental power is large enough, Chen Luo may be able to achieve a leap between planets in the future. It can be said that from this moment on, his teleportation ability will truly achieve unprecedented metamorphosis. Definitely, this is only a small part of his metamorphosis process. The bigger change is the other force that appears in his body at this moment. The blood-red liquid gathered on the ground continued to surge, and then gradually condensed upwards, trying to return to human form. But at the moment when it was about to recover, the liquid fell down again without strength. This repeated dozens or hundreds of times, and finally, the pool of liquid on the ground finally returned to silence. Not long after, a trace of blood-colored mist gradually rose from the surface of the liquid, constantly changing its shape in the air, as if it was alive and full of mystery. Abilities continuously gathered, condensed, and finally merged into one, forming his unique divine power, Blood God Power. When the divine power was finally condensed, the blood-colored liquid on the ground condensed instantly, followed by a transformation, and finally returned to Chen Luo's appearance. In this land covered with magma, Chen Luo stood on the spot without a trace, with lava flowing at a temperature of thousands of degrees below his feet. However, for him now, such a temperature, even without the protection of energy conversion, has no ability to protect him. He causes no harm. Lowering his head, Chen Luo's face moved slightly. He slowly raised his right hand and snapped his fingers. Snapped. The next moment, a burst of blood-colored light emerged from himself. As the light changed, it formed a set of casual clothes and wore it on his body. Immediately afterwards, Chen Luo clenched his fists, feeling the power that was constantly surging in his body at this moment. With a thought in his mind, he subconsciously called up the system and started checking. Host: Chen Luo race, source blood clan, strength, 300, 1 for a healthy adult male, speed, 150 spirit, 500 physique, 400 skills, fighting technique, high, knife skills master, Proxima midnight magic, high ability, blood god power evaluation. Congratulations, as a demigod, you have entered the forest of strong men in the universe, but compared to those real overlords, you are not enough to compete with them now. 0. Please give me flowers. With the completion of the Road to God mission, Chen Luo's spiritual attributes officially broke through the limit as expected, reaching a height of 500 points. In addition, in the previous battle with the millions of demons, after continuously absorbing the various forms of energy released by them, Chen Luo's other 3 attributes also improved to varying degrees. With his current physical attribute of up to 400 points, as long as he increases it by about 100 points, he can officially reach the threshold of physical fitness to become a god. Definitely, these are not the most important. Looking at the ability column, the panel suddenly became much empty. Chen Luo was surprised to find that all the abilities he had before had now disappeared, replaced by the words, Blood God. 0. After feeling it carefully, Chen Luo seemed to understand something. His eyes moved slightly, he stretched out his right hand, and as soon as he thought, a streak of blood energy slowly emerged from the palm of his hand. Then the energy turned into a long, thin, blood-colored line, swimming back and forth on his body as if it had life. Turning his palm, the blood disappeared. Then, with another attempt by Chen Luo, his body disappeared in an instant. When he appeared again, he was already thousands of miles away. There is no doubt that the ability just now is teleportation. After the previous attempt, Chen Luo finally determined one thing. Although all his abilities have disappeared from the panel, it does not mean that they cannot be used. Using the new blood god power in his body as a medium, all the abilities in the past are contained in the divine power. As long as he wants to use these abilities, he can use them with just a thought. In other words, all his abilities are now integrated into divine power by the system. As these abilities were integrated, Chen Luo clearly felt that it was much more convenient and easier for him to use these powers now than before. Moreover, with the blessing of divine power, his abilities were now stronger than before. On a lot. As for how much stronger it is, this requires further experiments. Just when Chen Luo was secretly thinking about the changes in his body, suddenly, a familiar voice sounded from behind him.